Tune in most days of the week, and he'll be there schooling some ignorant creep or catch him on a gaming whim. But this ain't a game to him. You could be a Bradley's baddie too. You could be a Bradley's baddie too. So join Jovan and get your critical cap on. There's a Bradley's baddie inside of me and you.
What up, now? What's Gucci, my killers? What's Louis, my dillers? What's that jacket, Margella? Hey, guys. What's up? How are we? Hello, welcome back. Round two. Round two. We didn't get many debates in round one, so we're here in round two to try for some debates. Hello, welcome to stream. If this is your first time being here, hey, what's up? How are you? If this is your second time being here, welcome back. I can't believe you showed back up. If this is your third time being here, what the fuck is wrong with you? I'm not that cool. If this is your fourth time being here, you got a little bit of an obsession. And if this is your fifth time being here, okay. Anyway, welcome back to stream. 219-327-8005 is the number. If you think you can handle me in a debate, well, you need to pick up the phone and dial 219-327-8005. I'm going to say it again. 219, okay, 327, hold on. 8005. That is the number if you want to call in to debate. We have 5 topics on the board that we are debating today. Topic number 1, trans men and women are men and women. Topic number 2, there is no compelling external evidence for Christianity. Topic number 3, gender affirming care for minors. Topic number 4, MAGA is a fascist movement. And topic number 5, all MAGA, and I mean every single one, there's not a single one that doesn't fall into this category, is either uneducated and or they are bad people. That is all the topics on the board today. I hope you are ready for a good stream. If we get some calls, wonderful. If we don't get some calls, I don't know. I beat Resident Evil 9 before this, and I have thoughts. I won't get into them because I don't want to spoil it, but I have thoughts. Those thoughts being 9 out of 10 game, man. 9 out of 10. Easily. We'll see how I feel after a couple of replays, because I always need to replay Resident Evil like over and over again. But so far, man, 9 out of 10. Anyway, how is chat? Did you guys enjoy your second time watching the intro? Did you like watching that intro a second? I guess fourth time. We played it a couple times earlier today. (219-327-8005). My birthday is the 11th. If you would like to get me something for my birthday, I do have an Amazon wish list. You don't need to, but it is there. So if anybody wants it, let me know and I'll post it in chat. I don't think you do, but if you do, let me know. You still have time to order me a gift. What do you, like, you can get me something. Oh my God. What are we? But you know, you don't have to. It's actually not that big a deal if you do or don't. Have you considered doing a collab with allegedly Ian? I've spoken to Ian before because we used to run in the same like TikTok circles, but I haven't talked to Ian in a while, so I'm not opposed to it. I don't think Ian needs me though. Like if we're talking atheist debates, Ian has me easily beaten in terms of like being able to handle those debates. I did finish RE9. What do I think of the story? Very good. I did both endings. I did the bad ending first without realizing it was the bad ending because I suck at context clues. As soon as I clicked it, I was like, oh shit, this was wrong. A, ferocity, and obviously, you guys were first in chat today. I don't see a third person even claimed first. I just show you guys. Floam, thank you for the gifted sub. Rosa, the Queen Scorpio, thank you for resubscribing with Prime. R Page, thank you for resubscribing with Prime. No potential spam caller on my phone. Leave me alone. RE9 versus RE8. They're just so different. Like, they are vastly different games made with vastly different play types and styles in mind. I think I might have enjoyed the camp of 8 a bit more. No, it's 9. You guys saw how I was reacting to half of 9. I love 9. I don't know why I'm acting like I wasn't losing my shit while playing RE9. Anyway, 219-327-8005 is the number to call in. If you guys want a little bit of understanding about the topics, let me give them to you. Topic number 1, trans men and women are men and women. Now, the reason why I say this, just so we can give you guys a little who's a doozies about the topics, is I believe men and women to be social categories. I believe for a long time, just in the way that humans have engaged with each other, we have been, what's the word I'm looking for? We have always separated sex and gender socially in the way we interact with those two concepts. And because I don't believe we can set any one condition behind sex to equal a gender, I just don't see that as a clean map. So I think a cleaner map is to map onto some neurological or sociological viewpoint, which would be the genders man and woman. Topic number 2, there's no external evidence for Christianity. Now listen, there's no compelling external evidence for Christianity. Let me explain this. 1, compelling. There's no piece of evidence that you can show me that is enough that is gonna make me go, oh, I changed my mind. That doesn't exist, okay? Just FYI. External means one of two things. 1, external of the religion itself, so external from the belief system. There's no evidence that exists outside of the belief system. All the evidence that we've gotten has come from within the belief system. Also, external means out of the self. So like if you call in and you go, well, I had a religious experience, that doesn't tell me anything. Boo. Boring. That tells me nothing. So if you have compelling external evidence for Christianity, please let me know. 3, gender affirming care for minors. Gender affirming care is not only a safe but effective way to treat minors, especially minors with severe gender dysphoria. And gender affirming care should be a decision left up to parents, doctors, and the child, not to any of us. Number 4, MAGA is a fascist movement. How I define fascism is pretty straightforward. It is an authoritarian ultranationalist movement centered on mythic national rebirth and the dismantling of liberal democratic norms and worker rights. And MAGA definitely is all of that and then some. I also believe if we underwent both Umberto Eco and Lawrence Britt's 14 characteristics of fascism, you would see that cleanly maps on with MAGA as well. You could make the argument that the Liberal Party in the US is also fascist. I wouldn't fight against that probably, but it's not what I'm debating. So if you call in for that, I'm gonna ask you to just move on. And finally, MAGA are uneducated or bad people. MAGA have proven time and time again when they call me. And by the way, it's so funny that I've watched people talk about this. Like I'll get tagged on like threads with someone just going, this MAGA proved Jovan Bradley's 0.5. And I'm like, that's very funny that that's becoming a thing with you guys. But MAGA either A, is completely uneducated on political policy. They don't know how political policies work. They don't know the consequences of them. They don't know the causes of them. They don't know any of that. Or 2, they are bad people. So they either know the policies and the fallout of those policies, and they want to see those policies enacted anyway, which means they purposely want policies that are going to hurt people. Those are our 5 points today. So if you want to debate any of those, 219-327-8005. I saw a couple people in chat going, "You are liberal." I'm not a liberal because I don't like capitalism. I'm a leftist. You can call me a socialist, you can call me a communist. Either is fine with me. Both systems would be preferable to what we have now, which is capitalism. I think very plainly a system that engages in exploitation of the working class is not a system I or anyone else should be a part of. Now, when I debate communism, I do it a bit differently than most people. Most people at least have told me they're not big fans of the fact that I take it from like, maybe not a moral standpoint, but an ethical one. And I just can't think of any other way to do it. I don't know why I would ever debate it from an ethics standpoint. It just seems weird. Because if you can't prove that exploitation is unethical, then it doesn't matter if somebody is exploiting another person, right? So to me, like that's where I kind of have to go. We do not need to alienate liberals, though they still are a lot of our voting base. They're not my voting base, but I guess. Hey, we just got a Cash App. Kyle, thank you for the $5 Cash App. Said, happy early birthday. We share a birthday. No way. Well, happy birthday to us, Kyle. Big ups to my dog. Anyway, if you want to support the stream, there's a couple ways to do that. You can become a subscriber over on Twitch. You can become a member over on YouTube. Hey, next week is when I'm going to start my Switch giveaway. So if you're for the month of March, my birthday, I'm going to be doing a giveaway. We're going to give away a Nintendo Switch at the end of March, a Nintendo Switch 2. So you have to be a sub over on the YouTube channel to win. But we're gonna pick a random subscriber. I'll post a video that says the rules, but I'm gonna pick a random subscriber at the end of the month, and they're gonna win a Nintendo Switch 2. So if you want to support me on YouTube, go do that. We are so close to 100,000 subs on YouTube, dude. I'm 30,000 subs away. So go if you're not subscribed to my YouTube, go fucking hit that subscribe button right now. I don't think you guys realize how much subscribing helps a channel. So come subscribe if you're not. But yeah, subscribing helps. Becoming a member helps. Memberships over on YouTube start at $2.99, and subscriptions on Twitch start at $4.99. And listen, if you become a sub or a member, you get access to the Discord where we do tri-weekly book clubs. I haven't picked the book for next month or for this month, so I still have to. But we do a book club every 3 weeks. Our last one was super successful. We read Black Shirts and Reds, Radical Fascism and the Overthrow of Communism. So I'm so happy with the response that people had from this. So thank you guys for that. You can send a Cash App or Venmo. You don't have to. Tips are always appreciated, never required. But just know, anything you send on Cash App and Venmo, I literally just pump it back into the call-in screener. Because the call-in screener costs me money to run. So when you Cash App or Venmo, you are directly helping the stream exist. Just FYI. So yeah, I think that's all of our housekeeping. So 219-327-8005. If you're Maga and you want to have a conversation, call in. I match energies, so it is a respectful conversation. Your energy will get matched. If you start making a joke of the conversation, I'll start making a joke of you. If you keep the conversation sane, I'll keep the conversation sane. If you start being facetious, I'll start being facetious. It's pretty straightforward. Hey, Javon, have you checked out the Scary Movie 6 trailer? And if so, what are your thoughts? There's no jokes in the trailer. There's no jokes. We'll see when the movie comes out. But if the whole joke is just like, hey, look, this woke is funny, that's not a spoof movie I care about, right? When I'm gonna watch a scary movie, I want the jokes to be about the movies they're spoofing. And I want there to be more of a joke. This is why I started hating all the spoof movies, right? Scary Movie 1 and 2, and even Scary Movie 3 for the most part, do a good job of spoofing the movie and the joke being about the movie, right? Every spoof movie after that, the joke is, hey, just look at this reference. So like when she's on the train in that trailer and Mithrigan just starts dancing, like there's no joke here. It's just, hey, wasn't it funny in the Megan movie when Mithrigan danced? Okay. Why is that funny in this though? So parody is very hard to get right, and I don't think anyone has been really good at parody for a while. At least big Hollywood parody. So we'll see when the movie comes out. I'll probably watch it, but I'd like more than just like, haha, woke is funny, because that's just boring. There's no joke there. So again, could be funny. They could have just not shown any good jokes. But I watched the trailer and I didn't really see any funny jokes. The only one that was kind of funny, no, even that one wasn't funny. Like there's the bit where Art the Clown was like Santa Claus, and like, what's the joke there? That Art the Clown is Santa Claus? You know what I mean? What's the joke? I need more than that. Anyway, we got a call that's being screened, so hopefully if it goes through, we can have another debate. I'm glad I'm not the only one that pronounces it Mithrigan. Yeah, it's Mithrigan. Dude, Mithrigan is funnier than any scary movie after 3. I fucking thought that Megan movie was one of the funniest shits I've ever seen. When that little girl's trying to sleep and she busts out singing Titanium, I'm like, this is my thing with spoofs. How do you spoof something funnier than that? That's already so fucking funny. Unintentionally, how do you make something funnier? I didn't watch Mithrigan 2. So I don't know how Mithrigan 2 is, but I heard like it just was stupid because they moved it from like a horror comedy to like an action flick. And now Mithrigan is like a spy, which I don't think that's a terrible idea. They just might not have stuck the landing. Tropic Thunder was some good parody. Well, yeah, Tropic Thunder wasn't specific. There's a difference between specific parody and like the parody that we were seeing in Scary Movie. Scary Movie is specific parody. It is specifically parodying something else and it's referencing it. Tropic Thunder was just parodying like Hollywood as a whole. I do think Tropic Thunder is a funny movie. The second is not as funny. Mithrigan, probably not. The second Scary Movie is hilarious. So fucking funny. But we'll see how it is. I didn't hate that haunted house movie that the Wayans brothers did, the spoof on Paranormal Activity, but it wasn't good. It wasn't like great. There was like 2 really good jokes in it. But that's my thing. I think we as a society are past spoofs. Just make a funny movie. I don't know. Could just be me. Disaster movie's a piece of garbage. Every parody movie past Scary Movie 3 is bad. It's just bad. They're all bad. I watched The Blackening. Not a great movie. Not terrible, but not great. Scary Movie 1 makes a parody of a parody. I wouldn't call Scream a parody. I wouldn't call the Scream movie a parody of horror movies. I think it's just a meta. I think it's very meta, but I wouldn't call it a parody. Scream is genuinely a horror movie. I wouldn't call it a parody. I did see Iron Lung. I gave Iron Lung a 7, but I think sitting on it, I would drop it down to a 6. I was not as gung-ho on Iron Lung as everybody else was. And I can defend that really well. We do have a caller. We'll get to the caller in just a second. When it comes to Iron Lung, I don't think it was as good as everybody said it was. I think it wasn't bad. Like if you said, Jovan, pick a video game movie to watch, it's either going to be Sonic 2 or Iron Lung, probably. Like if I have to watch a video game movie, it probably won't be one of those. Iron Lung is good for what it was. I think it was 30 minutes too long. I think it was too dark. I gotta be so fucking for real with you. Couldn't see shit in that movie. And I get it, but I miss the days where when like I could see. I fucking miss the 80s and 90s for the only reason is that when it was nighttime or dark in a movie, I could still see everything that was happening. I don't know why we decided to move everything to super darkness. I hate it. I hate it. I hate not being able to see what's happening on screen. I hate it. I don't like that. And I also just think Markiplier was good, but I just think his acting needs work, and it's fine. This is only his like second acting gig, right? I think that like, you know, he will get better as he does more stuff. I think had I watched Iron Lung on like YouTube or streaming, I would have liked it better. I think seeing it in theaters was okay, but again, it just wasn't my cup of tea. I don't like the expansions to the lore just because I kind of actually like Iron Lung as more ambiguous. I actually think learning a bit more about the lore, like the movie kind of shows you, made me like it a little bit less. Javon, it's my youngest son's birthday and he fell in love with watching your gameplay. Can you say happy birthday to Caden? Not only will I say happy birthday to Caden, but let's give Caden a little birthday party. This is for Caden. A little birthday party for him.
You could be a birthday baddie too. A very happy baddie birthday to you.
Bada bing, bada boom. Let's get into calls today, okay? First up, coming on to stream, we have Dustin. Dustin is calling about topic number 1, trans men and women being men and women. Dustin, if you can hear me, please provide me with your age and pronouns.
Hey, I'm Dustin. I am 31, and I am a he.
Dustin, 31, he. No problem. Now, Dustin, I have a couple of questions to ask you. Before we begin, question number 1, do you agree to have your logic tested? This involves being asked hypothetical questions, following arguments to their logical conclusion, and clarifying definitions when necessary.
Yeah, sure.
Great. And Dustin, are you open to revising or conceding a point if a contradiction or inconsistency is demonstrated?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, great. All right. Now, Dustin, I believe trans men and women are men and women. Do you disagree with that point?
I would disagree.
Okay, based on what?
I would lean towards biology and say that essentially a man is an adult male.
Okay,
And
a man is a man. What does that mean?
No, a man is an adult male. So, like, as far as chromosome-wise, everything aligns as far as male biology aligns.
All right. Why?
And then the man part is just the age, above 18.
Sure. Why do men have to be adult human males?
Why does man have to be? I mean, I guess that's the definition for it, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Why does that have to be the definition?
It's just the definition that has been given as far as like how we describe what an adult male is.
Yep, I know, but I'm asking why it has to be. If the answer is just it is because it is, well, that's not compelling enough to convince me.
For sure. As far as like just why do words have definitions, I guess is that kind of.
Well, no. Why does let me start here. Are definitions descriptive or are they prescriptive?
They describe something.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, so as far as like if you describe an orange, right? Everyone, like, maybe some culture calls it a pear, but essentially we're talking about the same thing, right? It's just what you agree to call the thing.
So we agree, definitions, they are descriptive. They don't prescribe correct uses of a word. They just describe how we tend to use words. So knowing that the definition of man is a descriptive definition that just describes how the word's been used, what would be the issue with changing a descriptive definition? It's not prescribing any correctness.
Well, I guess the only issue would be is if it confuses people by not everyone being on the same page about changing it, right? So, for instance, like if we were talking about like men, I would say it's good to keep the word man for men for how we traditionally know it, and then just to describe trans men as trans men, because that's a little more detailed.
Well, again, my question is why? What's the confusing aspect about including trans men in the definition of men? What would be confusing about that? If man no
I guess if
longer
you're gonna
means
say,
male, right? If it no longer maps onto male, what would be confusing?
right, so I guess like say you wanted to tell a doctor like, hey, this person is having, stomach pains, and you're giving like certain symptoms, and by the way, they're also a man. You might confuse the doctor. They're like, well, I'm going to rule out a few things based on the information given to me.
So
I feel like, that's where
interesting you said that, Dustin. Interesting you said that. Did you know that a lot of trans people, their doctors medically label them as the opposite sex? So a trans man, for instance, their doctors label them as male and they treat them as if they were male.
A trans man will do that.
No, the trans man doesn't do it. Their doctors do it because especially if the trans man is on medical hormones or they've had bottom surgery, the doctors need to treat them as if they're male. Because oftentimes their bodies will react in ways that a male body will react to both medicine and treatment. So a lot of trans men, they're like, if they go to a hospital, their charts, their medical bracelets, everything is labeled male. It's not labeled female.
I'm not entirely sure that's the reason. My girlfriend's actually a doctor, local in the area, and yet it's true that their charts do show that they'll say male if they're a trans man, but it's not necessarily for reaction. They'll still know in their charts it still does say they're also trans people, and that's for good reason. Also, you don't want to administer to a male body what you should administer to a female, vice versa.
What are things we wouldn't want to administer? What are things we wouldn't want to administer to a male body that we administer to a female body?
Well, as far as hypothetically, I guess, say it's a trans woman who, or I guess what would be a trans man, right? So it was a woman, and hypothetically they're pregnant or something. Then there's certain drugs you can't give to a pregnant woman. However, if they're a man, then you might give them something to.
Sure, but it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter on their chart. It wouldn't matter on their chart whether or not they labeled male or female. All that would matter is that their chart labels them as pregnant. Right. That's all the relevant information that a doctor would need to know, not to give them drugs that a pregnant person can't
I would say
have.
supposedly before. I mean, because once you walk into a doctor, you're not known to be pregnant initially when you walk into the doctor's office. And I don't know if you're going to go and search for that if you're claiming that you're a man. I don't think.
Well, doctors who treat trans people recognize and understand that trans men may get pregnant, and they would understand when they look at a blood test of a trans man that they might be might be pregnant. So it's we're not talking about doctors who are going in this blind.
I don't want to get lost on necessarily the medical part to it. I understand because they do have on their boards yes, they will say male, but it also does say trans man. So
sure,
they are aware.
Your argument for why we shouldn't change the definition was hinged on the fact of the clarity of the definition is beneficial to doctors, but we're demonstrating that doctors...
No. Sorry. It's not for the benefit of doctors. That was the instance of why it may be good for clarity. Which that's exactly the point. Is on their charts it doesn't just say male; it will say a trans man, and they need that.
It would label you as trans, possibly because there are medicines or treatments you may be undergoing that are relevant to your medical history, right? But again, doctors will still label you as male, and they will still treat you as a male. They will still treat trans women as female, right? So,
but in their chart, they'll still know your history of a woman. They need to know that history for
but this isn't telling me why the definition of male or the definition of man can't be changed, right? Because all you're saying is that now if we look at a man, there are just two types we would be talking about, and doctors would label two different types of men, which I don't see a problem with.
Well, I guess why do the doctors not need the trans man stamp on their files? Why can't they just say man?
Okay, so one of the things I think that you're confused about is if we're talking about trans men being men, that doesn't now make them not trans. Trans is just an adjective. It just describes the type of man that they are. So it'd be the same thing. A doctor would know that I'm a black man, right? If I go to the doctor, me being black may be relevant to my medical history in some way, because we know of the way like black people have been treated medically, and the doctor may need to know about some of the stuff that I've like, right? But like even when they label my race on a thing, right? My race would be black, right? So if they label that, it doesn't discount that I still fall under the umbrella man. These are just adjectives that describe the type of man that they are.
But exactly that point, like, so there's no like, even though it might make a patient feel better to be called a white male, like it's still beneficial for them to actually have their actual, you know.
But it's not about being. It's not about. It's not about. Hold on. But one of the things you're forgetting is when we look at trans men, it's not about them feeling better when we're talking about doctors labeling them male or female, right? Doctors would label them male because they need to treat them as if they were male because of the treatments that they're on, or because of the care that they've received. Doctors now have to essentially treat this person like they're male because they are, because all of the relevant parts of being male. Hold on, Dustin. Hold on, Dustin. Yes, they do. Wait. Yes, they do, right? One of the largest factors in medicine for how you'll be treated is your hormone production, right? That plays a big part in how you're treated in a litany of things. So a trans man who is on HRT for masculinizing hormones, their hormone production of testosterone is going to be similar to that of a cisgender man. Right? So it's important that the doctors know this. So part of what doctors will do is they will label them male, because the biggest and important factor, which is hormone production, right? At least to doctors, the biggest and important factor, they're meeting the exact same criteria that a cisgender male would meet.
Yeah, well, but if they're treating them exactly like, if they're treating like trans men just like any other man, then wouldn't there be like a higher level of like, you know, BMI, like causing them to like overdose, or not overdose.
BMI.
They feel like, well, as far as like, because when they read BMI charts, as far as like women, they're like BMI, body fat.
What do you? I don't know what you're talking. BMI takes into account height versus weight. So
right.
What would BMI have to do with this?
The overall body fat composition, women have higher body fat composition than men. So like overall, trans men still have higher body fat composition. So it's not like a worry for the doctor to know that a woman has a higher body fat composition. It's just natural.
Wait,
but if they saw a man with
Dustin, that's not tracking here, right? Your body weight, your body fat distribution is not something your doctor is going to care about when you're either in for like a checkup or anything. And the distribution of body fat is different between everybody. It varies so wildly. I'm sure the distribution of my body fat is vastly different from yours, because I like food and I don't like working out. Oh, Dustin hung up. Oh, he's calling back. All right, let's just bring him back.
Hello?
Yep, Dustin, we lost you there for a second.
Sorry. Yeah. I just like touched my phone and accidentally hit the wrong spot.
No, you're good. But again,
Dustin, I lost you at the part. We're talking about BMI.
Yeah, I'm just saying BMI does not play as relevant as a factor in medicine as I think you think it does. Also, because most doctors have started to ignore BMI because we know that it's just sort of, I won't say bunk, but it's kind of useless in determining most health-related things.
For sure, I agree. Yeah, it is, but
none of this. But really quickly, Dustin, just to keep this on track, none of this plays into why the definition has to remain the same. Because as long as we can differentiate trans men and cis men when we need to, right? As long as we can compare and contrast those two things when need be, then the definition of man changing doesn't matter. Because you'd still have you'd still have the umbrella term and these deeper categories of the term, right? So my question still stands: is why the definition of man can't be expanded to include trans men? I don't believe it would cause confusion. I think it's pretty easy between like one conversation to like wrap up any confusion you may be experiencing.
Well, so you're saying though there is like instances where it is appropriate to delineate into like say a trans man versus a man, right?
No, to compare a trans man to a cisgender man, right? So
Okay, yeah,
comparing and
yeah. So
contrasting two different types of men, there's not a problem with that. We do that all the time for a million different things, right? I in my line of work, which is political analysis and the like, I compare white men to black men all the time. So it is important that we have these adjectives that talk about the type of man that you are, and it's totally fine to compare and contrast them. But if I'm not comparing and contrasting, for instance, a black man to a white man, I'm not going to mention race when I talk about the man, whatever man I'm talking about, because I don't need to. I'm not comparing or contrasting it. So it's the same with transgender men and cisgender men, right? There is still a delineation because those terms are adjectives. But if I have no need to compare them, then I would just call them all men.
so you're saying like why can't I basically like say, hey, like my understanding now is a biological stance, and like basically like a trans man wouldn't fall under that term for what I say now, and like why can it not just be like that? You know, like what's like the barrier, I guess?
Your argument essentially boils down to an appeal to definitions. Your argument is essentially boiling down to the definition says it's this, so therefore it's this. But that's just, we know that's not how definitions work. Definitions don't prescribe some level of correctness. We don't look to the dictionary to tell us how a word has to be used. We look at the dictionary like a snapshot. The dictionary says, hey, at this point in time when this book was published, this seems to be the common usage of the word, right? This seems to be what we see in society as the common usage. Most dictionaries have already changed their definitions of gender, sex, man, and woman to allow trans people into that. Because they find it to be more common of the usage. But yeah, my question to you is like, why, if the definition says adult human male, why that has to be the case, and why we can't change it if we found that there's another version of the definition that would more encompass everybody?
Oh, well, I guess that's what I'm saying. If you want to encompass everybody, just say people. But I mean, men versus women, you want to like, I guess like have like a difference, right? And the difference is a man and a woman, right? We're not just people. You could say people, like there's nothing wrong with saying people.
Yeah, so I wouldn't just use people if I'm talking about gender differences, right? So if I'm talking about gender and the categories that we socially put people in, because that's all gender is. Gender is just categories that we place people in based on whatever markers we're labeling at the time. When I look at gender and the way people engage in gender, it's very clear that we don't engage in gender from a pure biological standpoint. It's pretty obvious that we engage in it more in some social way. And so because of this, I would say like, if that's the case, if we engage in it more in a social way.
Like interchangeably. So I guess that's where it differs.
Do you recognize that by using gender and sex
socially?
No, go ahead.
Well, I guess because I don't like using gender socially, because in that aspect it's just like, okay, based on social norms you are a male, or yeah, I guess you're a man based on social norms, but that's kind of weird to me, because like hypothetically, you said we're going with hypotheticals, right?
Yeah, hypotheticals are fine.
Okay, so hypothetically there's a country where social norms are backwards. Then all of a sudden, like if I go there, am I considered a woman then? And I would say like, no, I'm not a woman, but if they're socially saying I'm a woman just based on social norms, you know what I'm saying? Like I feel like that's where.
So this is okay. So this is where we're okay. Good, we're getting somewhere here. So this is part of where I would put some pushback here, because when I look at the way our brains and society handle gender, it's very clear that we handle gender from sort of a self-identification standpoint, right? So let's take a bathroom, right? Let's just say I walk into Target and here's a bathroom. Now, the way that I engage in going to the bathroom has nothing to do with my biological sex, right? When I look at two doors with two signs, I make the decision where I go. There's no one checking what my sex is. There's no one checking if I got a penis. There's no one doing a chromosome check, which would be the only way to relevantly check sex, right? It's just assumed based on either how I look, how I feel, whatever you want to label it. It's just assumed that I am a man. And it's not on someone else to question this. So this is part of the issue, right?
Yeah.
You're saying, well, if a society prescribes me a gender, I would tell you, hold on. It's clear that when we look at the way our brains, like our physical brains, interact with gender, it's not about what society prescribes you, but it is about what your brain prescribes you in context to the society you are like raised in. And our brains do this all the time. Our brains are just naturally categorizing things. Always. It's called schema. This is just a fundamental piece of human psychology. When I hold up a fork, you can place that fork into categories. You could put it into utensils, you put it into the category silverware, and you just do this subconsciously, instantaneously, all day, right? Look at 3 cars, you instantly know that's a car, that's a motorcycle. They're both vehicles. They're both automobiles. This one's a Ford. There's 3 Fords. There's 4. Like, your brain is just automatically doing this. Our brains do it with gender. Our brains have been categorizing what we see males and females doing all the time, always. So now that I know that we have human brains that do these category things, right? Now that I know that we have brains that do this, now I want to look at our relation to said categories. And what it appears to be, at least from all of the psychological and sociological research on it, is that our brains naturally connect to these gender categories because they're in some way tied to sex. So our brains just have this natural connection to them. Now, either that connection aligns, and it's just, picture it like a river, and you flow down the same river that you're born with. Like me and you, we're born in the river male, right? And our brains just naturally flow down that river. They don't even think about it. Some people, their brains are fighting against that current, right? So if that river is the river male, and you're born and you don't feel like your brain just does not connect with it, your brain's going the opposite way. It does not align with that river. So now, knowing that this happens, like, not even talking about like the gender part. Sorry, I'll finish this here. I know I'm getting a little long-winded. Now that I know that we have brains that do this, because we know it is an objective fact that some people's brains do not align with their sex. That is just an objective fact.
I guess before we can change to how, where does the objective fact come from? What's like the evidence, I guess? Well,
the evidence would be that we have people who have gender dysphoria. Right? We know that there are people whose brains don't align with their sex. We just know that is the case. When I mean objective, I just mean it's something we have seen existing in the nature of people. And we've seen this in the nature of people for fucking decades, centuries, thousands of years.
Yeah, but just because it's in the brain, that doesn't mean it's necessarily in reality. Also, like, there's people
hold on. We're talking about two different things.
I saw a guy at the gym.
We're talking about two different things right now. We're talking about two different things right now. When I say it's objective, it'd be like if I said, hey, it's an objective fact that lions tend to eat other animals. This is something that we've witnessed in nature and we see happening over and over again. It's something repeatable in nature. So it is a repeatable fact of nature that some humans' brains do not align with their sex. That's just a repeatable fact of nature. So knowing
does
this,
that mean they're actually the opposite sex? That's what I'm. Think they're the opposite sex.
Yeah, so that's what I'm getting at here. If I know that our brains have these things called schema, and I know that our brains operate in a way of categorization, and I know that our brains can disalign with what our natural born sex is. Well, now I'm looking at gender differently, right? I'm not looking at gender as a clean map of the way that sex exists in your body, because some of our brains don't cleanly map like that. Now I'm looking at it.
Why though? But
I don't think the why.
To clarify.
Oh, go ahead. Ask your question.
Just to clarify though, I guess so you're basically making a rule out of I guess what's the statistic as far as how likely is gender dysphoria and out of 100 or 1,000, right? Because it's
very low percentage.
I assume it's really low, right?
Yep. But it being a low percentage doesn't mean it doesn't happen. And it being a low percentage doesn't mean it wouldn't change the way we categorize things. So if we're looking at the way we categorize stuff in science, if we're placing things into
it. If I ask you how many fingers does a human have, right?
The difference. Okay,
of course there's instances where people have one more, one less, but
yeah, but Dustin, what you're not realizing is that makes my argument, right? Because we don't categorize humans by the amount of fingers they have, because we know, right? So
we say humans have 5 fingers.
No. We don't make any, we can say they typically have X amount of fingers because that's what we see typical in the population, but it is not a condition of being human that you have to have 10 fingers. And we wouldn't do that because not all humans have that.
It is true that humans have 5 fingers and our actual DNA is designed to have 5 fingers. There are anomalies. There's one-offs and stuff, but
that's why what I'm trying to express to you is that in scientific classification, in the way we categorize stuff just on a scientific level, we almost always use the phrase typically. And we almost never make hard category rules because there will always be exceptions. And unlike the legal system, for example, where there are sometimes exceptions to a law, if you're making a law that's about scientific classification, there can be no exceptions, right? A necessary condition to fit into a category can have 0 exceptions whatsoever. So the second an exception exists, that can't be your necessary anymore. So if we're looking at males, for instance, like let's take the category male, a category we made up just to separate sex, right? We made up the category male and we gave it. Now, it used to be that males were simply just XY chromosomes. That was kind of the way it was categorized for a long time in biology. We don't categorize it like that in biology anymore because we found that category to be insufficient, right? That one necessary condition that a male must have XY chromosomes is not always true. There are males who do not possess an XY chromosome pairing. So because one of them exists outside of that, it breaks that rule. So now we have to look at something else. We have to go, okay, now what is the thing? Like, right, if I want to categorize man, and man has to be categorized by being a male, and male then has to be categorized by something else, but we know it's not XY chromosomes. Okay, what is the thing?
I would actually not really. I don't think I agree with what you just said though, because you're just saying because there's an anomaly, we have to fully write it off. It's like sure, there's
no, it's not that we have to write it off. We have to change what the necessary condition is. That's the problem. That's why most scientific classification uses what's called cluster categories, which is, hey, here's a thing. This thing shares 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 traits with another thing that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 traits. And it can be a mixture of these traits. But if we're saying the category is exclusionary, right? That means something has to exist to keep other things out of the category. So if I'm saying, hey, here's a man, and that man must be a male, okay, well then what is the trait that all males possess that 0 people that aren't males possess? Like, what is that trait? It can't be XY chromosomes. Because some males,
it would be XY chromosome and
some males don't have XY chromosome pairing. Right? Some males don't have an XY chromosome.
Though. There's a small, there's like a sub 1% exception.
So Dustin, you're so close to this. You're so close to this. You're so close to this, right? Again.
No, I get you. You're saying, I know you're saying, but so let me just say what you're saying just to make sure I'm with you, right?
Sure.
So, all right. So yeah, you're saying basically through history, XY chromosome was male. However, we discovered that there were some males that didn't have XY chromosomes. And then we're like, well, how do we actually, determine? But I would just say, well, we still do say XY chromosome. It's just once in a while. There's like hermaphrodites, right? That's what the cases you're talking about, like hermaphroditic instances.
So two things. One, we tend to not use that phrase anymore, at least in in forms of humans. There are hermaphroditic animal species that can't. Hermaphroditic means you have both male and female genitalia and reproductive organs. We don't see that in humans. There has, as far as the research I've done, there's never been a human that fits that. So we tend to not use that phrase anymore. A lot of trans people find it offensive when talking about humans. So it's not a phrase that we tend to use.
Well, as far as sex organs, there have been humans with male and female sex organs, right?
There haven't been humans that have a clean mapping of what it's supposed to be for hermaphroditism, right? A very few select animal species have been shown that. But what does happen is humans will have intersex conditions, or it's called differences in sex development, I think, is what we call them, DSDs. But again, this is why when we're talking about scientific classification, right? If you are to tell me, hey, a trans man cannot be a man because he doesn't have XY chromosomes. But here comes another cisgender man that doesn't have XY chromosomes, but you allow them into that category. Well, now I'm wondering what the distinction here is. Why is it that some men can be men without XY chromosomes and others can't? So I'm looking for what
still produce like sperm and everything else is the same.
There are men who don't. There are men who don't produce sperm. There are men who produce who have no gamete production.
Right. So they don't produce sperm, but they do have the chromosomes to match for males. So that's what I'm saying.
Some don't.
As long as you have the majority of the definition matching. I understand. That's why the whole typically thing. It's like males typically have XY chromosome and can produce sperm. But not, of course, there's like a sub 1% chance that it's not the case. But if they don't have all of the things, right? So if they don't have all of those, then that's what I would say it would not be a male. But if they don't have XY, can't produce sperm, there's probably one or two things I'm missing. But as far as like doesn't have ovaries, stuff like that, so like. So there's like a list of things. I guess because it is mostly reproductive cases, and there is a social.
For instance, you can have a male born with like XXY chromosomes, Klinefelter's. I think that's Klinefelter's syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
They would not have an XY chromosome mapping, and they don't produce sperm. Right? They fit outside of this. Typically they don't produce sperm. Some of them do, but most of the cases, if you have Klinefelter syndrome, you don't produce sperm. So they don't fit into this mapping, but they are still scientifically labeled male because in science, we don't set male and female by one specific trait. That's why you said, when you said, hey, it could be a list of a couple of things. That's because in science, we use cluster categorization, right? That's just how we categorize things.
I would say typically males are that, but there are the anomalies that happen, like this case, right?
But that's what I'm saying. You're using it's special. It's a little special pleading. It's a little bit of a special plead to say, hey, typically males are this, but there are males that don't possess this. Here comes a trans man who wouldn't possess this, and you say, yeah, but they still don't count, right? Why? Why is it that some do count without it and some don't?
Because I guess once you group in trans men with all men, then you eliminate all that aspect to it, then it's 100% only like social aspects of what men are, which before I said I disagree with, because then you're like determining by location. If one location is feminine, is manly, then you know what I'm saying. So
this becomes that. Okay, so now here we go. Because this is the part that I think is really interesting about sociology and about like human social development. I agree. There doesn't seem to be a clean mapping biologically, right? There doesn't seem to be a clean mapping on men to males, right? There doesn't seem to be a clean map biologically that doesn't exclude some men or some males. So now I say, okay, what is the thing then? If it's not clean mapped biologically, what is the trait?
Yeah, I would just say it's not clean. It's just not clean, and there are anomalies which you don't not accept the anomalies. You just say they're anomalies.
But here's the thing. We've been looking at biology based on like sexual development, but there's another biological aspect of our bodies, and that's neurology. That's the neurological aspect. That's our brains, how our brains work. So now I'm looking, okay, so we can rule out sexual traits, right? Like there is no clean map that doesn't exclude someone from the category that should be in the category based on sexual traits. Now, what if I'm looking at traits of the brain, or what if I'm looking at like neurological traits? And now this is where we get into, okay, hey, wait, there's this thing that all humans have where their brains either align or disalign with their sex river. That does exist.
Yeah.
And that seems to be a much cleaner mapping, because every man whose brain either aligns with male or disaligns with female can cleanly fit into that category with no issues of anyone being excluded. Right? That seems to be a clean mapping, especially when we add into
other people tell you what you are. You aren't what you are. Other people perceive you what they think.
No. You're almost there. It's the fact that other people can't tell you what you are. So a really good way to visualize this is, let's say you have a friend. Let's say here's somebody you've known for 40 years. This is your best friend in the world. We'll call him Jacob. Okay, so let's say you and Jacob come over to my house and you go, hey, Jovan, this is Jacob. He's my best friend. Now, friendship is a interpersonal thing. It is a brain mapping that your brain makes based on a schema that you have internally done on what it means to be a friend to you. I can't then come in and say, because of the schema of my brain mapping friend, that Jacob doesn't fit these criteria, so therefore he's not your friend, right? Because we recognize that two people's schemas can't be the same. Two people's way their brains categorize aren't the same.
You can't say he's not my friend.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's I view
gender
exactly in the same way.
Well, I guess could say that he would just be wrong. Right?
I could say, based on my schema, I'm not a woman. But I can't say based on my schema, someone else isn't a woman. And I can say based on my schema, I'm a man. But I can't say based on my schema, someone else is not a man. I can just acknowledge that their schema aligns with their internal gender identity. And gender identity is just the way your brain aligns or disaligns with your sex. So as long as we have people whose gender identity, their internal perception of their sex and the way that's oriented in their body, aligns with their own categorization internally and subconsciously on what males and females are in society, I think that's a pretty clean mapping to determine whether somebody is man or woman. I think that maps easily. And there are literally 0 people who would fit outside of the category that aren't supposed to be outside of the category.
Sure. I guess that's what you're saying by it's clean, as in there's like no anomalies, it's like nothing missing, but it's because there's overlapping. You know, at that point it's just there's overlap.
So what?
So of course there's nothing missing.
We overlap categories all the time.
At that point, male and female overlap.
Yeah, but we overlap categories all the time. So what?
Well, I guess you know, all right. I would say that I see it as, you know, sort of a binary where a binary can't overlap, you know? It's like,
but we know that even sex isn't a binary. Sex fits on a bimodal distribution model. The way we know sex is not a binary is, again, by that categorization thing, right? There are no 2 traits that would fit in the binary, because there will always be somebody without one of those traits, right? So you could take gonads, right? You could take our gamete production. We have large gametes and we have small gametes. But people can be born with no gametes. That right there breaks the binary, because you no longer have just 1 and 2. Now you have 1, 2, and 0. Therefore, no binary.
Well, what's the odds of that?
It doesn't matter what the odds are. The second you have another one, the binary breaks. Like, I can't have computer code that has a 2 in it. It has to be 1s and 0s. It cannot have a 2.
Well, I mean, it's like if I ask you how many sides of a coin are there, right? It's like there's 2 sides of a coin, but technically that's not true. Technically, you know, the size of the coin is also part of the coin. It's just that part never flips on it. But it's not impossible for that side of the coin to be flipped on. But
sure,
no
but
one ever,
but if that's the case, like you couldn't say that, like, right? the sides of a coin are binary. You could say the faces are. There's only 2 faces on a coin, but you couldn't say the sides of coins are binary. There can only binaries, even deeper than like a necessary condition. Binary can only be 2. There can never be a third option. The second there's a third option, it is no longer a binary. It just that's just basic math.
I mean, well, exactly. But I mean, mathematically, we do that. We say like, hey, you know, it's like 99.5% chance that it won't be the third option. So essentially, it's binary. You know, essentially, it's like,
no, we don't do that in math.
You can go ahead and.
No, there's no instance. There's no instance in math where there is 0 instances in math where we label something a binary that has more than 2 options. 0. It does not happen. Mathematically, it's impossible.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, like, if you like go and like make a bet in Vegas on flipping a coin, there is no other side of the coin. There's no, you know.
But flipping a coin isn't a binary thing. Technically, I could throw a coin in the air and it could land. It could land on its side.
and that could happen, but we're so safe and sound, and knowing that the chances are so small it won't, that we go ahead and
Doesn't
put
matter.
up
When you're
it's
making a
basically
category
50-50.
distinction, you're making a hard set rule, and that rule is not absolute. So it cannot be a binary. It is not absolute.
But that's what I'm saying. But yeah, but okay, but your clean version is not absolute either. You're just saying it's like,
Yes, it is.
you know,
There is
like,
zero. Wait. My mapping, right? What I've described as what gender is and how somebody is either a man or a woman, quite literally does not have exceptions. So a man is someone whose gender identity aligns with their personal schema on the male sex. Quite literally,
so
zero people who
in
are
your way,
women
then,
would fit into
can
that.
someone be a man and then like identify as a woman, like another
Identifying
time? Like
and being are two different things. Identifying and being are two different things that we're talking about here.
Oh, can you be then? I guess could someone be a male and then a year later be a female?
Someone can be like incorrect about what their internal sense of self is and what their gender identity is, or they could even just come to a deeper realization about it later on. That doesn't change the fact that like at the time they would be X, Y, or Z. Just like, for instance, I can identify as a Christian, and at that point in time, I am a Christian. Just because I might later become an atheist doesn't mean I wasn't a Christian at that time. It just means I'm no longer a Christian. But most trans people, right, like somebody who's a trans man, most of the time, and I can only speak for what I've been told by my trans.
Christian's a belief system. That's not part of your like genes or anything, right? So, like,
no, you have
can
to
never be an African American.
You have to
become Caucasian.
You have to identify as a Christian. Like Christian is an internal self
Yeah.
thing.
Right. So I guess I'm aligning more so that gender is more in tune to race, as you're saying more so.
Well, race is an external class. Gender would be an internal classification. Race is an external classification. Like I, as a black man, I'm not black because I feel black. I'm not black because I have some internal, but like as a man, if you were to say, Javon, are you a man? I'd be like, yeah, I just feel like a man. Like, and there are things that I do when I do them, I feel less like a man, right? I'm an actor. I have worn dresses and full drag get up. I didn't feel it didn't feel right to me. It felt weird, right? Like I was like, this doesn't feel right, because for me, that's not who I am, right? It didn't map on to my internal sense of myself, which like I've had to shave my beard, and I sat there and went, something feels weird here. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I don't feel manly right now, right? Because that's not my internal sense of gender.
So it's essentially though, you're saying they feel like this because it's a hormone imbalance in the brain that's causing
not a hormone imbalance, although there are not a hormone imbalance, but there are studies that point to hormone washes when we're in utero. So like when you're a fetus in your mom's belly, there are some studies that show that like the hormone washes you receive via it be testosterone or estrogen or whatever washes over the fetus can and may have a linking to your gender identity later on in life. But it's not about an internal hormone imbalance, unless you're saying like you could make the argument that it's imbalance because these are people who might want to be their gender identity is male, so they're not getting enough testosterone to meet their gender identity. I could call it a hormone imbalance there, like they're getting too much estrogen, but like it's not due to any imbalance. No.
It's just the belief of it. It's just the.
Yeah, but I'm always careful about the word belief, because belief, in my opinion, implies some like thought process. Like you have to do some internal thought process, when gender identity is completely subconscious, and it's like what's the involuntary, like you don't think about it. It's just something that happens in all people. Like it's not even a question. It just occurs. It's not something we have to consciously put thought into.
Okay, I see. I guess I still disagree, only because I still do think it's more in tune to like you said, it's more external. I guess like you are saying it's internal, which I think it does reduce that external factor, which I think is a huge part of sex and gender. Is it's like some of my friends, of course, like they're still on some dating sites, and like some of their worries they say is like, yeah, sometimes there's, some people on there who do not, let you know about, I guess their past and stuff, and they say who they want to be with, and other than that, I guess I guess it kind of gives that aspect as a risk to that aspect too, because it's like people are kind of assuming when you say, hey, this is Janice, she's a woman, she's looking for a man to date. I don't know. I guess like most guys, straight guys at least, they sort of assume a certain thing. It's like, I guess there's nothing wrong too. Like if they just had the notice of saying like, hey, this person. I have a friend too who like they're fully okay with it. So like if they even said they were like a trans, woman, then like they're like some people are okay and some aren't. And I think like being able to have that distinction, I think is going to make it a little
wouldn't
cleaner.
come down
I
to.
don't think it's as messy.
My only issue with that is that wouldn't come down to what the person actually is. It would just come down to like your preference on dating, like your individual preference, right? I may have a preference for tall women, so I just don't date women who are under like 5'2". It's just, I guess that's still not tall, but maybe I don't date women under 5'10", right? There's no issue here, right? There's just a type of person that you like. And I think it's okay if you have like a genital preference. If you're like, hey, I just prefer vagina. That's just something I prefer in a partner. It may even be okay that you're like, hey, I just prefer a partner that I may be able to have biological kids with. I think that's also okay. Yeah. But again, that's different than whether that person is a man or a woman, right? Because there are going to be like, if your thing is like, well, I prefer a woman who I can have biological kids with, there are cis women who you won't be able to have that with, right?
That's true.
If it's, hey, I prefer a vagina, there are trans women that have vaginas. And from every person I've talked to who has dated a trans woman with a vagina, you can't tell the difference. They literally feel the exact same.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer a vagina that can also have a kid, which I guess that's where most of my friends would align with.
Yeah, if your thing is I prefer somebody I can have biological kids with, that's fine. That would exclude some cisgender women too, right? Like if you met a cisgender woman who was like, hey, sorry, I'm sterile, I can't have kids, or I had a hysterectomy, I can't have kids. You'd be like, okay, well, I'm sorry, I can't date you either because I want biological kids someday. That's fine.
I guess that's my point though, is like it gets rid of like the 1% of women who can't do that, but it gets rid of the 100% of trans women who don't fit the bill either, which I think like,
there's no issue with a dating preference as long as your reason for not liking them is because they're like, if I meet somebody, right, who checked every box, let's say I don't want biological kids. Let's say they check every last box on what I'm looking for. I'm attracted to them. We have things in common. We make each other laugh, yada, 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 yada. But I find out they're trans and literally every single box is checked. If I go, oh, well, sorry, I can't date you now. That's transphobic. Right? There's no reason. They check all of my boxes. There's no reason now. But if it's, hey, you check every box except this one, which is I want biological kids someday. Okay, that's fine. There's no issue. I have no issue. Like there's no issues with that. And I've not met a trans person that would have an issue with that.
Yeah. So someone just like, as far as like a chromosome thing, if it was like, hey, anyone who was like, ever a male, I just don't want to date someone who is a male in their past either, something like that.
But here's why the chromosomes don't work. There are females, women who have XY chromosomes and who have had children. They have pure XY chromosomes. You don't know the person you're dating's chromosomes. There's no way to know unless you karyotype someone. And most people have never been karyotyped. Probably like 90% of the population have never been karyotyped. Also, there's the bigger issue that a lot of people probably have both. Like mosaicism is a thing where the cells in your body can have both X and XY chromosomes. And it probably affects much more people than we realize because we don't karyotype people. So if your thing is like chromosomes, unless you're willing to test every single person you go on a date with, you're never going to know if the person you're dating has XX or XY chromosomes.
No, that's true. Yeah, no, that's true. But it's obviously like we're talking about still like the 1% thing, like the girl who, had XY chromosomes, like sure,
But would
a
you?
one-off.
But again,
know,
you wouldn't break up. You wouldn't break up with it. Let's say you don't have an issue with. Let's say it's not about biologically wanting kids, right? And you're like, and you go through dating, and you go, I only want to date someone with XX chromosomes, and you made a cisgender woman who checks all your boxes, and then one day she gets karyotyped and finds out she is pure XY chromosome karyotyping. You wouldn't break up with her. You wouldn't go, now we're breaking up because you don't have XX chromosomes. No, that wouldn't change your viewpoint at all.
So I guess, so thinking about this a little more, then, so like so when trans people, I guess, realize that, you know, they believe that they're, or not believe, I guess, when a trans person realizes that they're, you know, aligning more towards the other gender or the other sex, right? Then they say their gender is the same as the gender they align to. But like, so as far as that, why isn't that good enough then? What's the whole point of actually doing the hormones and doing the surgery if like that's already
those are two.
Woman,
these are now two different things, right? A trans person realizing their gender identity is one thing. A trans person seeking out gender affirming care is another. A trans person seeking out gender affirming care is typically doing it because they have what's known as gender dysphoria, which is just where they have, dysphoria just means stress. So they have this immense amount of stress that comes from the physical representation of their sex or their like phenotypic traits not aligning with what their gender identity is. So imagine, let's like take the river analogy again. So now you're paddling up this river the opposite way. So the river is male, and you're paddling up that river, and you're going against the grain. Like, right, you might, like, let's say you were born and you were assigned female at birth. So you're paddling against this river. Oh, I'm sorry. You were born male at birth, and you're paddling against this river of male, right? You're going against this river. Now imagine every time you look over at shore, here's a giant beaver dam with made of penises, and you hit that dam, and every time you do, you jostle your boat. Now imagine you've made it through the penis dam, and then 5 minutes later, oh, here comes a person. Here comes a person calling you the wrong gender. Now, boom, you've hit that dam again. Now you're struggling to push yourself up this river that you know you have to go up, and every time here comes another thing knocking you back and knocking you back and knocking you back. But now let's say, okay, let's say you. I'm losing what I'm not writing this down the right way, so I'm losing. So we have this river, this male river that you're pushing against the current because your gender identity is not aligned with male, and here comes the dam of penises. But okay, hey, whoa. You don't have a penis anymore. That penis dam is gone. It's not there anymore. So there's something when you're going up that river, you no longer push against that penis dam. And let's say you've now changed your pronouns and people are now referring to you, even just off the cuff, they're calling you she, her, right? Whoa, that dam is now gone too. You no longer have that dam. And let's say now, oh, you've also started taking hormones. And so you're getting like increased breast production or all these other side effects of gender affirming care. Now that dam is gone. Makes it a lot easier to paddle up that river. So that's all it is.
Yeah, but so I guess so it makes it easier to basically mentally deal with everything. But as far as like what is, right? Like, so how does like anything socially make you a male versus female then? Like, well, how is that?
Because
true?
the thing you have to remember
is
more
true than like XY chromosome?
Well, hold on. No, there's two different things. It doesn't make you more, right? So this would be it's somebody who's trans, who's gone through gender affirming care, is not now more of a woman than somebody who hasn't. It's just it's just about making sure that the physical representation of your sex, because we live in a society that has done this. I don't know how a trans person would be if they were born into a society that didn't gender people based on genitals. Who knows? We have no way to, and we'll never know that. But our society has for hundreds, thousands of years. We have used penises and vaginas to sort of map on gender and sex. So that's just ingrained. I don't remember it's not epistemology, but there's like an actual scientific study about how like social things rewire the human brain. Like if there's something socially that you do as a society for long enough, it's going to rewire the brain. But like now it is the case where there are just these list of traits that we typically see people have. That's why if you have a cisgender man who has gynecomastia, right? So they're growing abnormally large breast tissue that is going to more resemble like female breasts, that cisgender man can have gender dysphoria. They're not trans, but the physical representation of their sex in their body is not aligning with what they know they are. It's why if I took your brain out of your body, and like if we had the technology and I took your brain out and put it in the body of a woman, you wouldn't feel right. You would feel weird because that's just not what your brain is saying you are. That's all it is.
I see. Yeah, I've seen conflicting stuff about that, so I'm not really sure how to align myself until there's like more, I guess, hard evidence. But I know what you're talking about. I see what you're saying. But as far as like countries that are like egalitarian, where there's more of like or less like social pressures for sex wise, for like men to do certain things or women, like as far as like those like Nordic countries, I think they still have trans people, right? But like they're very egalitarian.
But
so I guess like
there's just a difference between
just
a difference between like an egalitarian society and a society that doesn't separate based on like that doesn't have gender roles or gender norms. I can't think of a single society that doesn't have gender roles and norms. I don't think they exist. But that being said, I do think we're hitting like 55 minutes on the call. So I do need to move on to another caller. If you are, what I would suggest, okay, and I hope you take this to heart. There's a show called Takis, the Transatlantic Call-In Show. It's hosted on a channel, The Line. It's hosted every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern. It is 2 trans hosts, and typically, I don't know if Ben is on today. Ben is a whole ass doctor, but it's 2 trans hosts. So I can give you scientific classification. I can do all this. I can kind of explain the feelings trans people have. They can do it much more if that's something you're interested in. I don't know if it is or isn't. If it is, I would call them just to get a bit more of, like I said, and Dr. Ben is on today. I was on this week. So if you want Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, they have their show.
Yeah, definitely more into some more in-depth perspective. But yeah, nice talking with you for sure. I'll let you get to your next call and stuff. I'll talk to you soon, or maybe soon.
All right. Well, Dustin, you have a good rest of your day.
You too. Bye.
So I know that call was long, but I think Dustin has the inklings of changing. I think Dustin can learn. So that's why I continue to talk to Dustin. I think Dustin was more so began asking questions, which I think is always a good thing. I don't know if he will change. I hope that he, starts. But I think Dustin shows promise that most anti-trans callers don't. I mean, the sheer fact that Dustin changed and said, I don't want to call it a belief. I want to call it more what they're identifying and aligning with. That alone, right? I do these calls every day, okay? And I have these calls with so many people. That small change, right? And just the way he phrased that at that point in the call was huge. So, if you like that call, like the live, subscribe. What else do we have on the call-in dockets? We have another person. Both of these next calls are trans men and women calls. Is Lucian really calling again? Huh? Okay. Pillow hung up on him. Okay. I was gonna say, dude, what? Bob's seeing, yeah, you're right. We'll get to the next caller in a second. We don't have any super chats to read, and nobody sent any tips to read, so I don't have to respond to any chat stuff. Boy, oh boy. I felt like being Bob today. No, deadass. How many trans kids regret their decisions? 3% on the high end. I don't know why we keep talking about this. Like the number isn't 3%. I don't know why transphobes would use that talking point. Like the number, like we don't have multiple studies on it. It's 3%. Kind of embarrassing. On the high end, it's 3%, by the way. More likely it's gonna be looking at like 1 to 2%. On the high end, it's 3%. Now you're in New York. Concrete jungle, wet dream, tomato. Hello? Yeah, see, Danny, there's this dude, Danny, in chat. He didn't provide a counter source. He just went on to, you guys need help. Okay, provide a source then, Dan, to substantiate what you said. Anyway. Let's bring up the next guest. Next up coming on the stream is Chris. Chris also wants to talk about topic number 1, trans men and women being men and women. Chris, if you can hear me, please provide me with your age and pronouns.
37, and I'm he, him.
All right. Now, Chris, I just have a couple of questions for you. Question number 1, do you agree to have your logic tested? This includes being asked hypothetical questions, following arguments to the logical conclusions, and clarifying definitions when necessary.
As long as it's in a civil manner, that's all I ask. I ain't trying to be ugly to nobody else either.
All right. And Chris, are you open to revising or conceding a point if a contradiction or inconsistency is demonstrated?
If I can see the logic, the statement, and it makes sense to me about the argument and all that stuff, yeah, I'm completely down for new information and new things.
All right. Now, Chris, I believe trans men and women are men and women. Do you disagree, and why?
I believe that, because I try to tie it into all of it, because I don't hate on anybody, but I believe that if you're biologically a man or woman, you're biologically a man or woman. But I'm not saying that your mind doesn't make you feel like you might want to be the opposite. Make sense? Does that make any sense at all?
Well, let me ask you, Chris, if we're saying that man and women are biological things, right? If that's what we're saying, what is the biological trait that makes somebody a man or makes somebody a woman? Oh, Chris, are you there?
I mean, yeah. Can you hear me?
Oh, yep, I can hear you. It just sounded weird for a second.
No, I believe it's the X and Y chromosomes. That's okay. Obviously you have genitalia and different things like that, but people can have surgeries done and all that like that. So to me, the biological sense, the only thing that I could see that would actually make it 100% accurate is the XY chromosome.
Okay.
And I know people can have X and Y chromosomes and, like hermaphrodites and different stuff like that. I'm sorry. Is that a wrong term? Is that a bad term to use?
Yeah. So we don't use that term in relation to humans because there are no humans that have been shown to demonstrate like true hermaphroditism. So it's just not a term we use about humans. It is a little offensive, just so you know for future reference.
I apologize.
No worries.
I apologize.
here's the thing that I'll say based on. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. No, I was just, I guess the best term I could think of in my mind to call it is dual sex.
So the thing that we're going to be looking at is intersex conditions. So males and females can have a long litany of list of intersex conditions. So these would be just differences in sex development. So just something that's different in the development, you know, of their sexual traits. So if we're having the conversation and I'm trying to fit people into categories, and one of those categories is man. Now, according to you, the trait that would be needed is XY chromosomes, right? That's the trait that you need to fit into said category. And if we analyze this, what we'll find is that this isn't a clean mapping. So an example would be there are women, cisgender women who are female, who have XY chromosomes. They have pure 46 gonadal XY chromosomes. And they not only have been able to get pregnant, they've been able to give birth successfully. So this would either mean XY chromosomes are not actually necessary to be a man, or that these women are men. One of those two things would have to be true following that. So when I look at that, like logically from my brain, I would go, okay, so clearly this trait isn't the clean mapping. So there must be some other trait that you have to possess. And just spoiler alert, when it comes to human sexual development, we are going to find this issue with every single biological trait, that there will be somebody who does not fit the map. And so I don't know if you heard any of the last call, but if that's the case, then I would go that it has to be something else that makes us men and women, which is where I would lean more towards the neurological and the social aspect.
Right. Correct. Okay.
What are your thoughts on that?
I completely understand where you're coming from on that as far as the logical standpoint. I think there's a lot more to it than what most people actually want to say, because most arguments, they don't come in with any kind of details or anything like that. They're just like, this is the way it is because I said it is, and different stuff like that. No, I shouldn't say most. I'm saying I would say some people. That's the argument, because they don't look up the actual information. That's why I called in, because you were actually being logical about some of the stuff you were talking about and all that stuff like that. So I figured it'd be a good conversation to have.
Yeah, for sure. So if that's the case, if you recognize that there's a logical contradiction in your thought process there, are you open to changing your mind on trans men and women being men and women? Or we can even let's even start before that. Are you open to changing your mind that gender is a trait mapped on to sexual biology?
It is strictly mostly sex for gender. And I mean, I guess your sex and gender would be the same thing in my mind. I mean, but I also understand that there are people that think differently, that people that their minds are wired differently, and it's not that they have any problems or anything like that, but they think differently than everybody else.
Sure, but just remember, like based on the logic train that we drove on just a little while ago, that gendered is not easily mapped onto sex like we thought, right? There are going to be women and men who don't meet those qualifications and who exist inside or outside of the category that shouldn't be either in or out of it. So that's why that's why I'm wondering why you're so holding on to the idea that gender and sex have to be synonymous with each other.
They don't necessarily have to be synonymous. I'm just saying there are parts of it that are. Mm-hmm. And just like everything else, most of the time it's a 50-50 split between, what the side thinks and what that side thinks. It could be in politics, it could be in, doctors, it could be in colleges, it could be anywhere. I'm not saying every single aspect of that gender and stuff matches up together exactly. I'm just saying there are some aspects of sex and gender that do match, and there's a lot of aspects that don't.
So here's where I would agree and disagree. I don't think it's that sex and gender are the same. I think there's very clearly some sort of relationship between the two. That's not in dispute.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
It's very obvious that our sexes and our gender are tied together in some universal way. The key difference being that your sex doesn't determine what your gender is based on some like external classification, right? Like just because someone's a male, that doesn't necessarily mean their gender is going to be man. And just because someone's female, it doesn't necessarily mean their gender is going to be woman, right? There's clearly some other thing, some other social thing at play here. So I call gender specifically a psychosocial relationship, right? There is an aspect of gender that exists in our neurology, and that works in tandem with the aspect of gender that is socially distributed and constructed.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree with that aspect of what you're saying at this point.
Yeah. So
I just think, like,
go ahead.
May I speak? May I say something real quick? Real quick. I feel like if you're born a man, you should do everything you can to try to fit in until you get to the point where you're like, no, I know this is not what I want. I know this is not what I need. And I have no problems with people like that. I've got people that are gay friends and stuff like that. I have no problem with them at all whatsoever. Never had any problems with them, different stuff. But I kind of went off a little track, but I feel like I know there's a certain point, but I don't feel like it should be introduced to kids when they're young. I feel like they shouldn't be doing any exchanges or anything like that until they get to where they're 18 years old and they have the choice, they have the knowledge, they're a full person.
Here's the pushback here. Here's the pushback here. So me and you we've come to an agreement on a few things. One of those agreements is that sex and gender are not the same, but they do have a linking, right? And that our mapping of gender as we've known it for like most of human history isn't a clean mapping, and it's going to have these exceptions that we need to like account for. Let's take all that and look at now people who are trans and the care that they receive. So if I know that some people's gender and sex don't align, and if I know that this leads to what we know as gender dysphoria, which is just an immense feeling of stress because of the differences in that alignment. And now I know that stress, that dysphoria, can lead to comorbidities like depression, anxiety, social issues and disorders. It can lead to self-harm. It can lead to suicidal ideations. If I know all of this, now I want to say, okay, what is something that we can do to lower the prevalence of these things? And what we found, at least through the mountains of research that I've done, is that gender affirming care, whether that care is social, and so we're just socially affirming someone, whether we're affirming them medically, whatever it may be, that is going to lead to a decrease in the comorbidities that are associated with gender dysphoria. So we see it specifically with like a 70% decrease in suicidality. We see an overall increase in well-being, even in like just like biological well-being. Like we see an overall change in all of these. And if you want, at the end, I can quote you all the studies that we have on those. So now I'm looking at, okay, and if I'm just talking adults, I'm seeing that this is care that works for them, that they are not regretting because the regret rate sits at the high end of 3%, and that they are happy with all these things. So now, knowing this for adults, I now see that, okay, well, hey, wait, there are some children who are trans that experience all of these negatives from gender dysphoria. We know that to be the case. How can I help them? And so I'm going to look at, okay, now we have social affirming care, right? That's always going to be our first option. So we affirm them socially. For some people, that works 100% of the time. Not 100%, but you know what I mean. For some people, that's all they need. They have that social affirming care and they are good. Some people, that doesn't help because of because like we talked about, there's that relationship between gender and sex, and it is butting heads with each other. I used a really great analogy last time about a beaver dam made of penises. So, it's butting heads with each other. So that social care isn't effective. So it's like, okay, well, what else can we do? Okay, well, here comes medical affirming care. And what we've seen is that when we analyze the benefits, even amongst youth, and when we analyze the benefits of medical affirming care, they oftentimes are going to outweigh the risks. And I think that decision Knowing this needs to be left up to the child, their doctor, and their parents about making a benefit risk analysis. Are the benefits of this care outweighing the risk of these care? Now, as somebody who like, if I'm putting myself in that situation, if I have a child who's got like a high risk of suicidality, or who's currently like self-harming or has all these things, if I know that medical transition can stop my child from dying, I'm choosing that every time. It's not even a question. I'm choosing that decision.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that like we're giving kids bottom surgeries out of nowhere. It doesn't mean any of that. Typically, these medical interventions are going to line up with the Tanner stages of puberty. So it lines up with like pubertal development.
Right.
And we do this.
When you change it in the pubertal development, then you actually, when you change it in the pubertal development, you're actually initiating something inside the system to change it to what they want to be, because they're developing already. So if you change it then it actually takes, and it actually, your body actually accepts it more, because you're already changing and you're already, I get that. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're spot on. The other side of it too, and you can talk to trans adults and they will tell you it's so much easier to go through it at a young age because your body hasn't finished. If I tell somebody, hey, you have to wait until you're 18, and so their body has gone fully through masculinizing or feminizing puberty, in order to now reverse those effects, it will cost more money and it will take more work to do so. Mm-hmm. And now they've gone through what could possibly be traumatic responses to the opposite puberty, right? So like take the dam analogy again. Like, it sucks to have to push against the penis dam over and over and over again. And the watching your
poked in the eye and poked in every orifice you can get.
Exactly. And you have to remember, we go as people, as people, poked in the eye is crazy. Just as people, we went pre-puberty, boys and girls are almost indistinguishable. Right? Like there's a reason why little girls play boys in movies all the time and nobody fucking knows. Yeah. Right? Because they haven't gone through those changes. Age,
it's kind of hard to tell them apart.
Exactly. So my thought process is we keep it individualized. We keep the care based on who needs it, and then we individualize that care based on what they need. There can still be guidelines, right? Yeah. I think it's totally fine to say nobody should have bottom surgery till they're over 18. I think that's fine. I've not met a person who genuinely cares about this belief system who disagrees with that, right? But the other care, it's been shown to be safe, it's been shown to be effective, and it's been shown to, like I said, lower all of those comorbidities that we're worried about when it comes to gender dysphoria.
Right.
As long as it's done with parents and doctors. I don't think kids should be able to go into the doctor's office by themselves, like a 14-year-old kid going like, hey, give me hormones. Where's your parents?
Right, yeah.
That's just the way our medical system works. You also can't go into a doctor's office and be like, give me chemo for my therapy. Where are your parents? They have to sign off on this.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah.
So yeah, it seems like, Chris, you agree much more than you disagree.
Well, I do. That's the only reason why I called, is because all the shit you were saying, pardon. Can we cuss on here, or is that?
Yeah, I don't give a fuck.
Taboo. Okay. Well, it's like all the stuff you were saying, all the shit you was talking about, it's like I have my set beliefs, and I know my beliefs and what I believe. But what he was saying made sense as far as helping people. If it's helping people, I have no problem with that. But I don't believe that and honestly, me personally, thinking me as an 18-year-old man knowing everything, or 18-year-old kid, I should say, thinking I knew everything, even at 18 years old, I still don't think a lot of these kids out here really should be left alone. That's the legal way, and that's what that some of them. I don't know. That's just my opinion on that. I think some of them. The only
thing I want you to keep in mind is look at the regret rate. If it were the case that these people are too young. Or if it's the case that they're too young or they're not ready to make these decisions, that regret rate would be way larger. it would be astronomical. The
Right.
regret rate for knee surgery is 22% for knee surgery. Right?
Right.
We have a study out of
4 years ago, and I was down.
Yeah, we have a study out of, I want to say it's a Swedish cohort study that like analyzed people who had bottom surgery and followed up with them upwards of 50 years. And the regret rate for that bottom surgery after this 50 years was 2.2%.
Yeah, but here's my question to you. Here's my question to you. All right. If everything else has been working, if everything else has been going good, how do we help that 1 to 3%?
So
that's what I want.
So are you
I
ready?
want to help that 1 to 3% that is still confused and stuff, and that don't know what's going on, and they have the surgery and then they're still confused about it, and they still feel bad, and they still have suicidal thoughts, stuff like that.
So you have to think about this in two different ways. You have to think about this in two different ways. One, it's not the case that 1 to 2% is regretting the surgery because they like are detransitioning. Some of them might be regretting the surgery just because of complications from said surgery, right? Doesn't matter. Like that's just going to be the case with every surgical thing, right? Even if it does help, there may be things that happen where you're like, well, yeah, I just kind of wish I hadn't gone through with this, right? That could be the case with everything. You could have that with getting your wisdom teeth out, right? Like that's just the nature of any medical thing. But the way we help the 1 to 3% when it comes to detransitioning and people who are detransitioning, people who no longer identify as trans, who want to detransition back, right? I believe the way we help them is by expanding education around gender, right? Because if somebody is only ever getting their education on gender from the internet, like from TikTok or from like these smaller sources,
not medical professionals.
Exactly. Not medical professionals, not the education system. If they're only getting it from these places, they may not have the understanding. Like some kids may not be trans men. They might be gender nonconforming. They might be non-binary. They might be all of these other litanies of things they could be. But they don't know because people are just saying, don't talk about it and maybe and hope kids figure it out. That's the worst way to do it. Instead, let's sit down with kids and explain, like not kids, obviously third graders probably aren't going to be able to understand this the same way like a 7th or 8th grader will. Right. But we have these conversations about what gender is.
If you can't drive, then we don't need to have that talk.
But here you go. Now you're going to have people with regret rates because you're not teaching. Kids aren't stupid, right? Kids might be naive. But that's different than being stupid.
Right.
Kids are learning. They're learning about their identities. They're learning about who you are. And we have to be able to have serious conversations with them about those things so that they're making informed choices when they're older, right? So that they are not making... Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I didn't. If you want to go ahead. I was just going to say, different kids, their mental capacity, it matures at different ages. So you might have one kid that's mature like an adult at 10, and you might have another one that's mature or not even mature at all at 20. So that's where that's where my mindset is.
But
like,
the only thing with that though, Chris, is it's not like we're having any conversations about any like adult subject matter, right? We're just talking about a purely scientific thing, the relation of gender and how that relates to our different sexes and how that relates to society and as a whole. These are just biological and sociological conversations, even psychological conversations. It's not like we're talking to them and saying like, yo, I'm going to teach you how to do butt sex, right? Like, it's not like we're doing any of that. We're having conversations on actually of like things that are studied in academia, and they can learn this, and we can do it at age appropriate ways, right? It doesn't need to be like I'm not going to teach a 5th grader advanced calculus, but I will start to teach them algebra so they can understand advanced calculus when they get older.
Right. And I understand everything you're saying, dude. Everything you're saying makes complete sense. And as much as I'm not against all that stuff, but I was raised Pentecostal holiness and Assembly of God and stuff like that. But I don't live it now. I'm embracing the world, and I'm just trying to find my place is the world, and I'm just trying to embrace everybody and show love to everybody, man. And I try.
All I'll say then, Chris, and
what
then we can wrap up a little bit. Is if what I'm saying makes sense, if you're finding no logical holes in what I'm saying, and if it's all tracking, then there's no reason not to then be like, okay, well, I guess my position on this needs to change with, and I need to move to like, and my position needs to be the position of like, logical consistency, you know?
Logical consistency. It's my concern is helping people. I don't care what it is I need to do to help them. Whether it's me telling them, hey, yeah, whatever you want, man. If this is what you want to do, then that's what you need to do.
Yeah,
you know,
so,
just backing them up and just holding them up and being in a stable position to tell them, hey, there's nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah, so the way we help trans youth and trans adults are twofold. It's through education, it's through listening, and it's through the application of gender affirming care, which again, medically and academically have been proven safe and effective. So that's the way we help with that.
The only thing I have on that gender thing and all that stuff is like, I feel like there has to be a cutoff. You know, he was saying you ain't going to talk to no third grader or fifth grader or something like that don't really know what's going on. All they know is their life. You know, you have to wait until they get to old enough to where they can contemplate their decisions and actually understand.
We just have to make it. We just have to make it age appropriate. We just make it age appropriate.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
Anything can be age appropriate, right? We can have sexual health education that's age appropriate for a kindergartner, where it's just teaching them about like, hey, here's the proper names of your body parts.
I don't think kindergartners don't need to know nothing about sex.
That's not true. Hold on, Chris, you're thinking about this in a different way. It's not the case. Kindergartners, any child that can verbalize, that can speak, needs to know some very basic level things. They need to know the names of their body parts, and they need to know what consent is for them, like good touch, bad touch. They have to know these things because it prevents childhood sexual assault.
They need to know good touch, bad touch. Yes,
they need to know the names.
They need to know
children who, no, Chris, let me get this.
Don't touch my no square.
Chris, hold on. Kids who know the accurate names of their body parts, right? Kids who know that they have a penis and they have a vagina are less likely to be targeted by sexual assaulters and are more likely to be able to come forward and get the person who assaulted them in trouble because they know the names of their body parts. And we have decades of research on this, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Finish your statement.
I was just going to say.
Go ahead and finish your statement.
I was going to say part of the reason why we know this is because we've interviewed with people who are child sexual assaulters who are like, yeah, I avoid kids that can name their body parts because they more easily could say I was doing something wrong, right?
They were touching this part. They were touching that part. Yeah, I get you.
So it's not about teaching them about sex. It's, hey, this is a part of your body. It's not wrong for you as a fifth grader to know that your penis is called a penis and that it's a private area that only you should be in control of and touching, right? There's nothing wrong with teaching them that, right? And now they have a foundation to prevent. There are so many people when we interview like teenagers going through sex ed for the first time, there are so many kids who were assaulted as kids who had no fucking clue because they were raised in just, we don't talk about sexual health education areas. And they come to these realizations later as they start to learn about that. We need to be teaching that.
You don't need to tell nobody about it.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I said you're talking about having households where the parents or somebody was coming in and molesting them or doing anything like that, and they're just telling them, "Oh, this is how it is. You don't need to tell nobody about it."
Yeah, and we know when it comes to children, most childhood sexual assault happens in the home. So obviously, if they're getting assaulted in the home, no one at home is going to teach them about consent. No one at the home is going to teach them the proper words for these. So they need an advocate outside of the home. So it needs to be, in my opinion, mandatory that in school, your children, even if it's not taught, your children need to know. There can be some sort of knowledge thing where we just find out if they know this, and then maybe they don't need to, but they need to know the proper names for their body parts, and they need to be able to demonstrate good touch, bad touch, and what they say specifically if someone assaults them. I don't want a kid coming up and going, "Oh, Uncle Billy ate my cookie," because adults can misinterpret that and write it off. A kid needs to come up and say, "My uncle touched my vagina," because that is not misrepresentatable. That is clear. That is articulate. Now, obviously, you'll still have people who don't say anything because of trauma, but like a kid is way more likely to tell you these things, and it's way more likely to get a conviction and to get somebody arrested if they're able to articulate assault. So that's what
identify.
Yeah, if they're able to identify and articulate, and that is still sexual health education. It's just we do it at a appropriate age for the kids, because sex health ed isn't just I'm teaching you about sex. We as humans have sex.
Right.
Like they're like our sex, male and female, are stuff we can learn about.
That's our fucking drive.
Exactly.
You know, we want to procreate.
But not even the procreation. Like that's why I kind of wish there was another word.
You know what I mean?
I wish.
Sorry, that's not what I meant by it.
No, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
That's what we have, sexual desires. That's our base nature. You know, some people can hold it in, some people can't. You know, that's where you get rapists and different stuff like that.
Well, most rape it comes from like weird power things. But yeah, it's not even about wanting sex. It's about like some weird. It's about
actually have sexual atrocities committed against them.
That can be the case. I've not looked at the research hard about like the actual like overblown, but most like rape, it comes from power. Like it's about somebody who wants to feel power. Right. Not they don't necessarily want to get like have sex. They're doing it for power purposes. But yeah, just and we'll wrap up because we've been going for 30 minutes. But yeah, it's just education. So.
But no, everything he was talking about, I'm completely with it. Right. But I just feel like there should be a threshold where, like, okay, you're talking about all the gender affirming things that we were talking about and how to help people from committing suicide and all this stuff like that. All right. I understand that when a 10-year-old person, not going to gender any of them, but 10-year-old person, if they're feeling like they're different, okay, well, the family should embrace them. The family should embrace them first. That's what family's for. It's to, hey, you're safe. This is a safe place. This is what we're about. Hey, whatever. I don't care what you're doing. Just let me know. Talk to me. You know, I feel like that should be the best.
That's a form of gender affirming care.
Huh?
That's a form of gender affirming care.
Because you're just embracing it don't matter what race or gender they are, you're embracing your family.
Yeah, so
that's where I feel like
if you have a kid,
if you have a kid, is correct,
right? If you have a kid and that kid comes up to you and they go, "Hey, Dad, whenever you call me a girl, it makes me feel like shit." They might not say it just like that, but like, I don't like being called a girl. It doesn't feel good. I'd rather you call me a boy. And you go, "Okay, I accept that. I'll call you a boy." Right? This is gender affirming care. It's just social affirming care. This may be all that child needs at the moment. Now, when they start puberty, that might change, but this might be all that kid needs at the moment, and that's totally fine. And I think that's
the question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I have 2 kids. I got a boy and a girl. All right. So if my daughter walked up to me and told me that she wanted me to call her a boy, if me, all right, and this is me trying to reach out and not be it's like I was saying when I talked to your intern that was or you're not your intern, your secretary or whoever it was that your call log. If she says she wants to be a boy, and I just don't use pronouns, and I use other words that still they're not like instead of using he, she, they, them, what all that. If I just walk up to her and say, "How you doing?" Instead of using the pronouns, if I use other words that aren't offensive, is that
so
me
I can't answer that. I can't answer that adequately because I'm not trans, right? I know that it would help them if you referred to them as what they want to be called, and sort of sidestepping it and trying to avoid it might be detrimental as well. Right? Because you're still refusing to accept them for who they are. One thing I do want to say is it's okay to ask probing questions. If your kid comes up to you and says, "Hey, I don't like when you call me girl, please call me boy." It's okay to ask them questions about that.
Okay, why is that?
Yeah, you can say, "Why do you feel this way?
Why?
Explain to me this feeling," right? As long as you're not, and because that's what a therapist would do anyway. They're asking you questions to probe. As long as you're not placing anything on them, and as long as you're not denying who they are, if you're like, "Hey, explain this to me, I just want to understand you better," right? Tell me a bit more about this. What can I do to help? Is there anything else that would help you feel? Because the worst thing for a kid of anything is to have their parents just deny who they are and deny. Like imagine, and like take trans out of it. If your kid came out as gay, and every time they tried to introduce you to a partner, you were like, "I don't want to." No, you're denying a part of who they are. And to a kid, being denied who you are by your parents is I genuinely can't think of almost anything fucking worse.
I haven't talked to my fucking dad in 2 years.
Exactly. So accepting them and helping them live the truth that they want to live, all that will do is strengthen your bond with your child. That's all that will do, is it will make the bond that you and your kid have so much stronger.
Okay. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What if my child comes to me and says that to me? And I'm like, well, I don't really agree with exactly what you're saying, but I'm going to use gender neutral terms for everything. And I just come out and tell her that. Would that be the best way to handle that situation?
That's still denying. That's still denying who they are, right?
It's not denying.
Yeah, but think about it.
I'm not using offensive terms for it. I'm just saying I don't agree with that, but I will. This is a compromise. Every relationship is a compromise.
But Chris, listen, there are some parents who have to do that, right? Because they are still coming to terms, right? But what I'm trying to instill in you in this is, to your child, that's still a denial of who they are. It's like, "Hey, I know you tell me you're this, but I can't accept that. So I'm going to call you other things. And I'm going to use gender neutral terms." That's still a denial to them, right? Especially it's
just like somebody saying, "Oh, I'm the best fighter in the world," and everybody else telling them, "No, you're a fucking piece of shit." Pretty much is what it comes down to.
Yeah, you have to meet them where they are. And so if they're saying, now listen, if they say, "I just don't like being called a boy, call me whatever else," that's just where they're at, then that's fine, right?
What if we talk about it?
If they specifically
like, "Hey,
make a preference,
can I call you whatever word we come up with and agree to?"
Some people have a mix of both. Some people may like she or they pronouns. But like, let's say if your kid is adamant and tells you directly, "I am a girl, please call me she and please call me her," and you don't do that, that is a denial. And that they are going to feel like they are being denied, which is just going to make that chasm between you grow.
May I ask another question?
Mm-hmm.
When does it come to the point, as parents, we always love our children, we always want to be there with our children, and we always want to accept them for anything that they have. But when does it come to a point to where your child tells you something that you don't agree with, and then I understand that's your child, but the child has rights. You have rights. Like there's a fine line. I'm not necessarily saying that you need to just misgender them and disrespect them and all that stuff like that. But I feel like there's a conversation that needs to be had between the people that are talking to the children.
If their identity or who they are or what they're confessing to you is not detrimental to themselves or others, if it does not directly cause harm between themselves and other people, then that would be the line. If they're coming in and they're saying, "Hey, Dad, I need to confess something to you. I strangle puppies in my spare time." Well, now I'm going, now, hold on. Stop the fucking phone. That's psychotic. Okay. Let's figure out something. There's something's fucked up.
How many you killed?
But if it's like, hey, I'm a girl.
It wouldn't have nothing to do with their mental status or anything like that. How many, like,
as long as what they are going through is not detrimental or harmful to themselves or to other people, and as long as it's not a belief system that will directly harm them or someone else, then there's no reason not to accept it. Unless it's something crazy, like
I don't believe that if they're harming animals and shit like that. But I know that was an extreme, example that you were giving. But that
would be harmful to.
If my daughter, go ahead.
I mean, again, if it's something crazy like, "Dad, I put ketchup on my pancakes," then disown them, obviously.
That's bullshit. Yeah, that's not.
But again,
but hey, Dad, I killed 3 people and buried them in the backyard. No, that's wrong. No.
If it's just about them telling you who they are and who they are is not harmful to themselves or others, then there's no reason to not accept it, whatever it may be.
Okay, well, here's my argument. Okay, you want everybody to accept the transgender role and stuff like that, okay? Well, if I'm a father and I have a daughter that wants to be a transgender, I'm already accepting of her, okay? So she needs to be accepting. She has her own beliefs and I have my own beliefs. And if I'm willing to step over some of the bounds of my beliefs, she needs to be able to step over some of the bounds of her beliefs and meet in the medial area.
The only issue I have with this, Chris, is based on all the conversations that we've had today. Your belief involving like what is a man, what is a woman, what trans, blah blah blah, wasn't built on any logical foundation because we were able to break that foundation here in the conversation.
No, it was built on logical foundation. The things you were saying made sense, and that's why I'm saying the things you were saying was logical. What my beliefs were built on logical foundations. But what you're saying also makes sense to me too, and that's why I'm saying I agree with you. So what I'm saying is, if my daughter comes to me and says, "I want you to call me he, him," all right, and I talk to her instead of just not saying it and doing anything like that and trying to subvert it and be like, "Hey, baby, would you be willing to make a compromise with me?" And be like, "I know you don't want to be called her and ma'am and all that stuff like that, but instead of using he, him, would you be..."
I don't think kids should have to compromise. I don't think kids should have to be the ones to compromise. Would you be willing? The child doesn't. The child isn't the one that needs to compromise. They're the child. Right?
Yeah, but the child needs to learn how to compromise in this world.
Wait, I don't disagree that people should learn to compromise with each other. Wait, Chris. There's a difference. Chris. There's a difference between compromising on what we eat for dinner tonight and compromising on your identity. Those are two different things. A child shouldn't have to compromise on their identity for an adult.
Well, I'm sorry. I'll stop. I'll stop. I just gotta get excited, man. I'm sorry. I apologize if I'm interrupting you too much. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. I'm just trying. A child shouldn't have to compromise on who they are for an adult. They shouldn't have to. Right? All that does is harm the child. You as an adult, it's not going to harm you. Right? It's not going to lead to any increased harm on you to call them she, her. It will, or he, him, whatever. I don't remember what we were talking about. But it will directly cause harm to them by having you deny their identity. That will directly cause harm. It won't cause harm with you accepting their identity won't cause harm, but you denying it will.
Okay, can I say one thing?
Yeah, and then we got to wrap up.
If you're saying
for like 40 minutes.
Okay, well, if you're saying that they're old enough to make the differentiation between their gender and all this stuff like that, that makes me think that they have a mind. that they can think and they can do themselves. If they're sitting here telling, hey, daddy, I want you to call me he, him. And I'm like, well, you're my daughter and I love you. I won't use her and all that stuff like that. But what if I just say they? That's exactly what the trans community did. You don't want to be associated with any of these. But I'm saying, this is my beliefs. This is your beliefs.
Again, all I want to point out to you
I'll make
is to them that will still be a denial. You're still denying, like,
it's not a denial.
It is. You're saying, I won't call you what you prefer, but I'll find some other thing to call you that doesn't go against what I think you actually are.
No, that's me talking to her. And if I say, hey, if I call you they, is that going to be okay? No. Okay. Well, then I'll just go through. I'm trying to compromise with my child, just like everybody.
But again, you're the adult. You're the adult. Chris, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
you're the
but they're
adult.
going to have to learn to compromise regardless.
Yes, but not on who they are. They don't need to compromise on who they are with the adults. The adults need to learn to accept them for what they are. Just like if you said, "Hey, son, you can be gay, but I'm not coming to your wedding. I don't want to be around it. I don't want to be around you."
That's completely fucking different.
No, Chris, it's not. If you're saying I will allow you,
yes, it is.
No, Chris, if you're saying, "Hey, listen, you can be gay, you can date men, you can do whatever you want, but don't bring it around me," you're still denying a part of them. You don't want to, like,
no, that's not what I'm saying.
It's the same, Chris. It's a direct analogy.
May I speak?
Sure, but it's a direct analogy.
Because that's not the same. Me sitting there and talking to my daughter after she's already come out to me and told me, she's known me her whole life. She knows how I am. She knows what I'm doing. And I'm sitting there talking, baby, I can't do this. I know this is how you feel. I'm not going to say that anymore. I'm just going to use neutral things like, hey, how you doing? Or different stuff like that. You can't compare that to sitting there and having a son that's gay and not showing up to Christmas. It's completely fucking different.
Chris, if you have a child who says, "Dad, I'm a girl," and you go, or they say, "Dad, I'm a boy," and you go, "Okay, but I won't call you a boy. I'm not going to call you a boy. Probably not going to call you my son. I'll come up with some other thing to call you." And they say, "But Dad, I want to be called boy." That's a denial. Just like if you have a son that says, if you use what?
Okay. You want to be called boy? I'll call you bud. What's going on?
But what would be? What's
my little girl.
What was so hard about?
I call my friends at work.
What is so hard about calling them a boy? I don't understand why this is the thing you're digging your heels into.
Well, here's my thing. It is my logic in my mind. Still goes back, and I know I said that I completely agree with what you were saying. But I still come back to it that, like, biologically, we're still those people. So whatever you are when you were brought into this earth is what you are. If you want to change it, that's your decision.
Okay.
That's where I'm at. I'm not saying that I disagree or agree with any of it.
Chris,
I'm just saying.
Listen to me on this really quickly. Listen to me on this really quickly. And this is going to be the last thing, and then I do have to move on. You, at the start of the call, agreed to me on one thing, and that was you were willing to concede or revise the point if a contradiction or inconsistency was demonstrated. I demonstrated a contradiction in. It didn't make sense in my mind. Chris, just listen for a second.
I'm sorry. I apologize, buddy. Go ahead.
I demonstrated a contradiction in the idea that gender and sex are the same thing. And you even agreed with me that they were no longer the same, but they had an alignment, right? But what you're telling me, but right now, Chris, what you're telling me is the reason you can't call your daughter or your son or whatever they are in the analogy, pronouns they want to be called is because you're going back to gender and sex being the same thing. This is what I'm going to ask you to do. Genuinely. This live is going to be posted after it's over. I want you to go back and listen to this call again and just see where you are after that. Okay? Just listen to the call one more time and see where that leads you, and then think about this position a little bit more. But I do have to move on because, like I said, we've been going for almost 50 minutes.
No, you good. I'm sorry, man. I've enjoyed the call. I really have, and I apologize if I've been disrespectful in any way. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful. I was just trying to have a good conversation. That's all I was doing.
Yeah, it's totally fine. Totally fine. Thank you for calling in, Chris. If you go back and listen to the call, if you want to call again in the future, feel free. But like I said, just go back, listen to the call, and then we'll see where that leads you. Ooh, okay. Oh, I could have led him to Takis. I didn't even think about it in that call. Oh. We don't have any other calls in the queue, but we had 2 hour-long calls today. I think I argued very well for my positions. Just personally. I need to get the analogy a little better, but I think that river analogy is really fucking good. I don't know about you guys. To my trans friends in the chat, let me know if that river analogy actually made sense. I feel like it made a lot of sense. Think Chris had a trans kid? It's possible. He did get weirdly defensive on the thing. You look like you're getting tired, Javon. I was born tired. That's my secret, Cap'n. I'm always tired. Cap'n America. It was also interesting to get into the sexual health education conversation. People are always standoffish about that until I explain it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." No idea about the analogy. Restate it simply if possible. Yeah. So I described gender dysphoria like a river. So let's say we have a trans man, and this trans man was born female. That was the sex they were assigned at birth. So this river is a river of female, right? If they're gender and sex aligned, they would go. Actually, hold on. Wait, this is the perfect time to use the whiteboard. Hold on, bitch. Perfect time to use the whiteboard. I'm literally writing on it while I'm talking about this, and I'm not utilizing it. So, let me pull this up really quickly. Where is it? Here it is. Okay. So let's say we have a trans man and they were assigned female at birth. So this is a river, right? And the river is a female river and they're in a boat. Okay. This is my shitty boat. Now, if they're gender and sex aligned, they would flow with the river. So they would flow with the river, but it's not aligned. So they flow against the river. So if the current is going this way. This is the current. They're going the opposite way. So it's already difficult enough to flow against the current, right? It's already difficult enough for them to row against the current. Now imagine they start going through puberty. Well, now imagine that there are dams that start showing up in the river. So they're already pushing against the current, but here comes a beaver dam made out of like estrogen. And here's a beaver dam made out of vaginas or excess breast tissue or all of these other things that are just building dams and making it much more difficult for them to go up the river. Right? This is how I analogized gender dysphoria for him. I don't know if it's a clean analogy because I'm not trans, so it might not be a clean analogy, but this is how I described gender dysphoria to a caller. And it seemed to help them understand it. And so the thing that I said is, like, let's say you get gender affirming medical care and that helps erase some of the dams. Well, now it's much easier to get up the river. Those dams are gone, or at least lowered. Easier to get up the river. I don't know if it makes sense, but it is what I used. Whether it makes sense or not, totally different. Instead of dams, it could be rapids. It could be whatever you want, right? Not a clean analogy because beaver dams slow the flow of water, making them easier to swim up. Then it could be rapids. Either way, it's just the dam just represents an obstacle in the river. It's just an obstacle that makes the river harder to traverse. That's all. Rapid penis is crazy. Anyway, 219-327-8005 if you want to debate. I would love a call that's not about trans people, though. Like, I just spent 2 hours talking about trans people. Would love to talk about literally any other topic. Also, W whiteboard being back? I just need to figure out how to do a thing. Jacob, thank you for the Cash App. Said for Beaver Dam, or for Penis Dam is crazy. And Jennifer, thank you for the Venmo. Said thank you for all the effort you put into teaching people. You're welcome. Let me go check actually if we have any super chats that I have to read. We do. We have 1 super chat. Oh no, 2 super chats. We have 2 super chats. Let's take a look. Cute Heavy said, I appreciate you, Javon, to the fullest extent of my being for standing with us. To those in chat, I love all of you. Keep going and you got this. Your beauty deserves to flourish and grow forever and ever. Hashtag trans rights. And from Micah Clark said, doing great work, Javon. Hey, thank you guys so much for the super chats. Hope you can talk about all genders. There's been so many debate streams where they only stick with trans girls as women experiences. I think it's the one that kind of tends to be brought up the most. But honestly, if you can have the debate about trans women being women, then it should be like literally super easy to then have the debate about trans men being men. Like, it is the exact same talking points. This is my favorite turtle, Raph. Raph, R-A-P-H, Raphael. R-A-P-H, Raph, not Raph. Were you team Iron Man or Captain America? It's not even close. Good stream today. Good stream today. Good stream this morning. Good stream this evening. Good stream this afternoon. I'm gonna try in March to stream just about every day. So let's see how that works. Right now it's I'm 1 for 2. Oh nope, I streamed yesterday because of calling it now. So I am 2 for 2, baby. 2 for 2, baby. We're gonna take callers who are in opposition to your points. Yeah, I prefer only ops, TBH. I just, you know. Wouldn't a vagina dam be a beaver dam? I guess so. One day we'll take, I'm still debating whether or not to do like debate nights in the Discord. Could be fun. Mick, thank you for the Venmo. Said one supportive adult in a trans youth's life drastically lowers their suicidality. True. Hi, Javon. How do you choose the questions to talk about in a day? Is it a community poll or what other methods would you use? I just have the topics that I'm pretty solid on debate-wise, and I'll rotate out 1 or 2 when I feel I've just like hit my wall. Unfortunately, I have found that community topics are almost never, I don't want to say good, but I think you guys sometimes don't realize what it takes for a topic to be a good debate topic. Do a hot takes debate night. Hot take, Goku's not a bad dad. You guys have just been fucking conditioned by Dragon Ball Z Abridged. Goku's actually a pretty good dad. He was just dead for most of his kid's life. That's not on him. Am I blue no matter who? Not at the moment. Ask me again when it becomes election time. Goku spent a year by himself with Gohan. If you can watch Goku and Gohan in the hyperbolic time chamber and call Goku a bad dad, you didn't watch the show. Why not blue no matter who? I don't do that for any politics. I'm gonna look at both candidates. If the Republicans like did a switch up and put up a candidate that was more liberal than the Democrats, I'm going with the Republican candidate. I don't do who over who. I look at both candidates, and whoever's policies are better, I go with that candidate. Now, most likely that's gonna be Democrats this next election because the current Republican platform is god awful, but what made you want to be so involved in trans rights, educating people about trans people, doing all the research? I was wondered because a lot of people doing the same thing are trans. You don't have to answer this, but I just find the gender and sex conversation super interesting. Like genuinely, I'll support any person. It's just I find the gender and sex conversation super interesting. So that's why I like to talk about it. It's just a really interesting topic. Okay, Goku was dead for most of the time Goten was alive. And when he finds out he has Goten, because he was dead, he's a good dad to Goten. You can see this in Super. Hangs out with Goten all the time. At least until world-ending shit comes and he has to go train. He gets a job because his family doesn't have money. Until he gets a fucking massive check from fucking Hercule and then he pieces off to space. I've never voted Republicans because I don't think a Republican has ever had a good platform. That's not saying it's impossible, right? But not in my lifetime have I seen a good platform come from Republicans. New penis damn meme just dropped in Discord. What? That's crazy. Jesus Christ. Would you have been team MLK Jr. or Malcolm X in the 60s? I think pitting them against each other like is a white supremacist thing. I wouldn't be either, right? They both had methods that work. So I think like the framing of I just wouldn't do that framing, you know. But whose fault that Goku ends up dead? Most time it's his fault. I mean, should he just let the world die? It's not his fault that he dies while fighting people to save everybody else. It's not on him. Gohan would be dead if Goku did not sacrifice himself with against Raditz. Well, maybe not dead, but he'd be kidnapped. I think a good dad sacrifices himself so his child can survive. Thoughts on the socialist hero, aka Green Arrow? Green Arrow is a socialist? I wouldn't call Green Arrow a socialist. But he did choose to stay dead. Yeah, sure, but I think his reasoning kind of made sense, right? Like, hey guys, all this shit tends to pop off when I'm here, so maybe I should stay dead. He was kind of right. The Boo shit didn't pop off till he got back. He's kind of right. I think the better Dragon Ball conversation is, how come Goku hasn't won a fight since like by himself since like OG Dragon Ball? Frieza is like the only one. Goku can't win fights on his own. That's the more important conversation here, is that Goku gets his ass whooped. Winnie, am I crazy? Do we have a call in the queue? Okay, no, we don't. Okay, I thought we did. Maybe I must have been crazy. Frieza shows up when he's off planet. Yeah, but Frieza got smoked. But again, Frieza came looking for Goku. Remember? He went to find Goku. Now, we can have some arguments like of Goku just being an idiot. Like, I think Super makes Goku fucking stupid. Hey, we need to bring all of the strongest people in our universe together. I'm gonna revive Frieza. Stupid ass shit. Dumb as fuck. There are so many stronger people you could have revived. Frieza? I actually think Cell would have been a better option. Because I think Cell could more be reasoned with. But I don't know if Cell revived if he'd be perfect Cell. He'd probably not be perfect Cell when he was revived. Like, Goku reviving Frieza is the dumbest choice a character has made in anime. Ever. So stupid. And he's just like, yeah, but if Frieza steps out of line, I'll beat him again. Fuck you, Goku. Eat shit. That's so stupid. Frieza is such a better character. I don't think Frieza's that good of a character, guys. Frieza's the most one-note motherfucker on the planet. Frieza is boring. I'm sorry. Cell is way more interesting than Frieza. I've never seen Dragon Ball. Is it worth watching as an adult? Here's how I'd rank Dragon Ball. OG Dragon Ball. Okay? 9 out of 10. It's a 9 out of 10 anime. Dragon Ball Z. 7.5, 8 out of 10. Z is tough because the Buu saga is a little rough. Having to sit through fucking Saiyaman. If you just watch Z up till the end of the Cell saga, 10 out of 10. And I'm including the filler. Z filler is real as fuck. If you skip the Goku and Piccolo driving episode, you're a madman. The Buu saga really brings down Dragon Ball a lot. I think Buu, like Majin Buu as a character, sucks. Kid Buu is great. Adult Buu is great. I think Majin Buu sucks. Hercule as a character is fucking garbage. I don't really care for Videl. Let me change that. I love OG Videl. I don't like what Videl becomes. I think Videl just becomes a fucking non-point and it sucks. Super, 4 out of 10. Truly garbage. Truly unwatchable. GT, 3 out of 10 if you're a fan. But if you just want a fun little Dragon Ball adventure series and you just cake it as that, it could go up to a 5. Daima, 6 out of 10. Love Daima. I actually think Daima's great. Goku Black is 15 out of 10 though. That arc is fire. No. I don't like how much they rely on time travel. Not a fan. I hate the Trunks redesign. I hate what has become of future Trunks. I think he's garbage now. They literally make him a terrible character. Frieza's the best antagonist in manga history. Absolutely not. What? Terrible, terrible, terrible choice. Almost every bad guy from Yu Yu Hakusho is better than Frieza. And it's not even close. Frieza's just the archetype. Cell is so much better than Frieza. Cell is so much more interesting than Frieza. Oh, true. DBZ abridged, like a 9 out of 10. There's a 3-book series called The Family Library by Robbie H. Harris that has age-appropriate explanations of sex at key age ranges. Oh, I didn't know that. Is this a replay? Yup. True. Abridged, if you've never seen Dragon Ball, is like a 1 out of 10. You have to have seen Z to watch Abridged and have it like really. Baby in GT is one of my favorite villains. Baby's trash. Trash villain. I prefer Omega Shenron to Baby every time. And I don't even really like Omega Shenron. Seto Kaiba invented the playbook on homoerotic. Seto Kaiba and Yugi was that show Heated Rivalries? Seto Kaiba and Yugi were the OG. I hate that we call the card game Yu-Gi-Oh! When it's called Duel Monsters. Yugi is the name of the character, and O is just what he says after his name. We can all agree GT is better than Evolution. Yeah, Dragon Ball Evolution is negative 20 out of 10. It's not even fun to hate watch. That's how bad it is. Convince me that men can get pregnant? Go read a book. I don't know what the fuck to tell you. I'm not convincing you of shit. How much would someone have to pay you to watch the DBZ live action movie from like 2011? If someone donates $100, we'll have a movie night for it in Discord. And I will Mystery Science Theater commentate through the whole thing. But I'm not watching that movie for anything under $100. That movie's fucking garbage. It's not even fun to hate watch it. It's legitimately not fun to hate watch it. It's not so bad it's good. So many movies are so bad it's good, where it's super fun. No, it's just genuinely bad. And it's hard to sit through. Goku literally gave Cell a Senzu Bean and forced Gohan to fight him. Now we gotta pack Goku up back to space. You go. Okay, that's true. That's true. That's Goku's dumbest move. That was crazy that he did that. No lie. There are 2 people being screened, and they will probably be the last calls of the day. What's better, DB Evolution or Netflix Death Note? Netflix Death Note. I don't even have to think about it. Evolution isn't even good in a vacuum. No, it's not even good. If you separated it from Dragon Ball completely, it's not even good. It's the worst. It might be one of the worst adaptations ever, next to the Dear Evan Hansen movie musical. Terrible adaptation. No, didn't follow it all, but the Ferris wheel scene is chef kiss for Netflix Death Note. Netflix Death Note is funny. That movie I can hate watch. It's funny as fuck. How about M. Night Shyamalan's Avatar? Also a movie that's not so bad it's good. It's just bad. Also, hot take, Netflix's Avatar is also bad. Can we stop trying to make Avatar live action? You don't need to. It's bad. It always is worse. Also hot take, live action One Piece is not good. It's very awkward. Okay, well, Winnie seems to think this next call is going to be a troll, so I guess we'll find out if it is or isn't. I could be convinced that it is. Anyway, coming up next is Frank. Frank wants to talk about gender affirming care for minors.
Hey there, how are you?
Hi, Frank. What's your age and pronouns?
I'm 42, and I'm definitely a male.
I didn't ask if you were a male. I asked what your pronouns are. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I heard your comment that you think we're going to troll. No, sir. I'm here to debate. Happy to, and I'll be very kind and certainly not disruptive. I respect your opinion to have an opinion.
You respect my opinion to have an opinion. What does that mean?
It means we're all made in God's image to be able to view the world through our particular lens, whether we're right or wrong. So I'm not going to tell you how to be, and I'm just going to tell you how I feel.
Well, I'm made in the image of Satan, but that's okay. Frank, I believe minors should be able to receive gender affirming care. Do you disagree, and why?
Okay, well, I agree with you, actually, but I think that maybe we view gender affirming care differently, okay? Because, so I, amongst other things, I volunteer, I help run a camp called Minor Minors in the summer times. It's a real camp, 501c3 PO tax exempt organization. It's a publication of the Church of the Universal Nomadic Traveler, and we are sponsored by them. Yeah, and it's a real site. You can go see it. It's minors, minors .vagabond, vagibond.com. And we believe in building character rather than solving your problems with surgery and mental health. Like it's really about building character. And we put kids through coal mines to solve their issues. That it works.
Yeah, the site doesn't exist.
I think you're spelling it wrong, maybe. minors .vagibond.com. Like vagibond. vagibond.com.
Mm-hmm.
You want me to post a link in your chat room? I'm happy to.
Doesn't exist. The domain is associated with a fictional or parody network of bizarre satirical ventures.
That's what we were labeled by Google.
Thanks for calling, Frank.
But that's not the case.
Thanks for calling. Please. 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 Got to wake up much earlier in the morning to troll me on that one. Please. Like, what's the point, bro? What is the actual point? It was supposed to be a troll. Anyway, let's see what's next. Okay. Next up is John. John wants to talk about number 4, MAGA being fascist. John, if you can hear me, please provide me with your age and pronouns.
26 years old. I am a he.
Great. Now, John, I believe MAGA to be a fascist movement. Do you disagree, and why?
I disagree. Yes.
Why?
So my primary 2 arguments for why I don't believe MAGA is a fascist movement is that, one, there was a peaceful transition of power that took place. Ultimately,
that's a joke, right? That one has to be a joke.
Can I make my point first?
I just need to know if that point is for real or not.
Yeah, there was no military coup, which is normally associated with a fascistic movement.
You think there was a peaceful transition of power?
In terms of how a fascistic movement is defined, yes, it generally involves the military cooperating in the movement, yes.
Is it fascist to attempt to use fraudulent electors to win an election? Would that be fascist?
Would it be fascist to attempt to use fraudulent electors to win an election? Is that what you asked?
Yep.
If you tried to go outside the existing legal structure, then yes. But
okay. Donald Trump tried to do that.
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did.
No, there was appeals within the existing legal framework.
Donald Trump created a list of fake electorates that he sent from states that were swing states that he tried to convince Mike Pence to certify instead of certifying the actual slate of electors that were legally from the states. That's illegal. He had 7 co-conspirators in this.
Yeah, but there was numerous court appeals within the existing.
This has nothing to do with the court appeals.
Finish my point?
No, because this has nothing to do with the court appeals. So I don't know what you're bringing up the court appeals. So they have nothing to do with any of what I'm talking about.
They have everything to do with whether MAGA is a fascistic regime, because a fascistic regime would not go through an existing legal structure in order to make an appeal in the first place.
Exactly. They went through an official legal proceeding. They got denied. And so they then tried to go outside of the realm of legality to get Donald Trump elected. And had Mike Pence not had a backbone and it had been somebody else, they may have certified the fake slate of electors. Just because Trump failed doesn't mean he didn't try. A failed fascist is still a fascist.
I would disagree with the characterization, because Mike Pence, being a governor and the vice president of the United States, his appeal for him to change the election outcome was debated by some legal experts as to whether that was allowed. And
Incorrect. He is not allowed to change what the legal slate of electors from states sent him. That's illegal. He can't say, hey, Arizona, you sent me your electors, but I'm going to ignore those and use these electors Donald Trump sent me instead. No.
Yeah, I didn't say he was allowed to do it, but I said that the appeal to Mike Pence was legally debated as to whether he was allowed to make an appeal to Mike Pence, and that appeal was ultimately rejected. And once it was rejected, what did we have? We had a transfer of power in accordance with the rules of the Constitution. So
John, how old were you? How old were you in 2020 or in 2021? How old were you in 2021?
2021, I was 21 or 22. 22,
Okay.
I think.
22, it means you were old enough to understand what we're talking about here. Donald Trump didn't just ask Mike Pence to not certify electors. He asked him to certify fraudulent ones. That's an illegal request. That request is not legal.
Yes, but merely making an illegal request doesn't indicate that you're a fascist. I mean, there's lots of examples you can list of people.
Making an illegal request to overturn an election fraudulently doesn't make you fascist? What does it make you?
It would make you legally mistaken within the framework, which is why there was a transfer of power after it was unallowed.
Do you hear yourself right now?
Yeah, there was an existing
I don't think you
legal
do.
framework.
I don't think you hear yourself.
Well, I think you're trying to project what you think I'm saying.
No, I'm not trying to project anything because you keep saying there is a peaceful transfer of power. Is it a peaceful transfer of power when a riot breaks out at the Capitol because Trump is lying to his base about the legality of the election? Is that a peaceful transfer of power? No. That transfer of power was not peaceful. Are we ignoring?
Yes, but what I'm really trying to argue here is that, just to lay out the totality of my argument. So when the initial, as far as Trump was concerned, I'm not saying it was valid or not, but when Trump believed that there was election discrepancies in the election, right? The first move was to make appeals within the courts at the state level. And ultimately, those appeals were rejected, as I'm sure you know.
Lost 60 court cases.
Then, yeah, those were unanimously rejected. Some got a little higher up, but they ultimately got rejected. And then there was the Mike Pence move in terms of the submission of the electors, and ultimately that was rejected. So what I'm trying to say here is that
he's not fascist because he's bad at it. That's what you're saying. He failed at fascism. He failed implementing his fascism, so therefore he's not a fascist.
No, you haven't demonstrated sufficiently that he is fascist. Like
you agreed with me. You agreed with me that it would be a fascist move for somebody to try to overturn an election using fraudulent electors. You agreed with me that this would be a fascist move.
No.
Yes, you did.
I didn't necessarily agree with that.
Yes, you.
Well, now I'm telling you, I don't agree with that. I don't think that's accurate.
So we're moving the goalpost now. So what is it? If it's not fascistic,
well, no, I think you pivoted.
I didn't pivot anything. I didn't pivot anything. We can go back and play the tape. I laid out. I said, is it fascist for somebody to take fraudulent electors and try to use them to get themselves elected into power? To which you said yes. That's what we're talking about.
No,
here.
I would. So, well, just to clarify my position on this, I'm sorry if I misspoke prior. I would say that it is not inherently a fascistic move to attempt to submit fraudulent electors if you do it within an outlined process.
He didn't do it within an outlined process. What are you talking about? He didn't do it within an outlined process because it's illegal. There is no process to do it. What are you talking about? There's
What are
you talking about? It's illegal. There's a legal process to election certification, and he tried to sideswipe the legal process to get himself elected into power by passing off fake votes. What if it's not fascist? What do you call that?
Yeah, I would call it constitutionally questionable, morally questionable. I would call it a false assumption of legality, but I don't believe that you've reached the bar of
is a tenet of fascism the erosion of democratic norms, and or is a tenet or characteristic of fascism the drive to ignore democracy?
All right, can you repeat that last part? I didn't hear it.
Is it a characteristic of fascism to try to ignore democracy and try to ignore democratic norms?
So, in terms of how I would define fascism, I guess this is an important part of the discussion. Is it's an attempt to restructure the organization of society, because there were fascistic movements throughout history that claimed to be democratic. So I think that's an important point to make. And sometimes they were elected democratically. So just because you were elected democratically doesn't mean you couldn't be fascist. So I don't think that's so I would say no, because there were fascistic regimes that were elected democratically.
You didn't answer the question I asked.
I did. You said, is it a fascistic? Is it fascistic to attempt to usurp the democratic process? Correct.
Mm-hmm. Just because some fascist governments don't do that doesn't mean. Or let me rephrase. Just because some fascist governments get elected into power doesn't mean they then don't try to usurp democratic processes. Can you name me a single fascist leader that did not try to sideswipe democratic electoral processes? Because I can't. At least not the big three. Franco did, Hitler did, and Mussolini all did. And those are the three that we mainly study when we're looking at the guide on what it means to be fascist.
Well, I would also say, though, I mean, there's examples where democratic leaders during times of crisis or during periods of instability have arguably shown a greater concentration of power and certainly skirted certain democratic norms and processes. So I don't think you can automatically pivot to it's fascist just because you've attempted to overrule or skirt a democratic system. That's why I would sort of reject.
Can you give me an example?
Well, I think an example would be like FDR during World War II. So there were internment camps that were.
Wait. He had wartime powers. So like, I don't disagree that internment camps are wrong, but he had wartime powers that were granted to him by Congress, right? This is vastly different from what we're talking about.
Well, but it's not though, right? Because the wartime powers didn't allow you to use internment camps during World War II.
Yeah, I would argue that internment of Japanese Americans was a fascist thing to do. Those Japanese Americans.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is a democratically elected person can still attempt something that is outside of the democratic process without it necessarily being fascist. So I wouldn't say that you've reached the bar of declaring Maga a fascist movement.
Okay,
with your
hold on, stop, hold on. So you're telling me that Donald Trump, you're telling me it's a terrible argument. You're telling me that Donald Trump, when he specifically said, I reject the legal and fair outcome of this election, I outwardly reject it. I've provided no evidence or proof that any fraudulent shit was happening. And what I want you to do, Mike Pence, is ignore the legal and fair votes. And instead, here are all the votes that I planned with my 7 co-conspirators with people who are not certified electorates. And I want you to certify these instead so that I become president. If this action had succeeded and he became president off of fraudulent votes, would you call that fascism if it had succeeded?
If it had succeeded?
Yep.
So by success, so just to clarify, so what you're saying is that if he had made an appeal to Mike Pence to overturn the election, and then Mike Pence had attempted to do that and Congress did not stop him.
If Mike Pence had certified the election for the win of Donald Trump and it went through and Trump became president again, would that have been fascist?
If Congress did not impeach him, then I would say no, because ultimately Congress holds the power to hold the president accountable if he attempts to violate constitutional norms. And if
I'm sorry. So a president can't be fascist as long as Congress doesn't impeach him. That's stupid.
No, I would say an indicator of a fascist regime would be usurping the highest authority in the land that holds
So if Congress
fascistic power within a democratic system.
So if Congress doesn't stop him, let's say Congress is filled with Trump loyalists who want him in power. So when he gets into power, they don't impeach him, right? They just go along with it. Is this fascist?
Well, so how would you define fascism? Because I'm kind of confused. Because if by filled with loyalists you mean legally elected representatives,
that's so stupid of you to
right?
say. So fascism is an authoritarian ultranationalist movement centered on mythic rebirth and the dismantling of democratic norms and worker rights. That's what fascism is. That's how fascism would be defined when we analyze the works of like Lawrence Britt and Umberto Eco and looking at the three major players, Franco, Mussolini, and Hitler.
Yeah, but the democratic norms weren't changed, right?
Because he failed. Stop. Because now you're just being an idiot. Because he failed is why they didn't change. Not because he didn't try, because he failed. He tried to erode democratic norms and dismantle them by fraudulently trying to win the election, but he failed. So your whole argument is the reason MAGA is not fascist is because they were bad at it. Not because they didn't try, but because they failed.
Well, just to push back here a little bit. So this is really like the first part of the argument. So my first part of the argument is that everything that was attempted ultimately did not succeed because it adhered to the legal system within the United States.
Stop. Already. No, I'm not going to let you finish because you already. No, unfortunately, I'm not, because you already said something stupid. It did not adhere to the legal system. Donald Trump trying to certify fake electors did not adhere to the legal system. I don't know why you would say that, because it's stupid. It was illegal. He did something illegal that did not adhere to the legal system. That's dumb.
I was just about to get it. So I was just literally about to say that. But so he attempted first within the legal system to attempt to overturn the election. Then when he attempted the illegality move, right, that ultimately did not work. It was corrected by Congress, Mike Pence being a member of Congress, being the vice president.
Senate.
Then
Senate.
you look at
Senate. You don't even know what Mike Pence was a part of. It's the Senate. It's not Congress. Senate.
Okay, but when he won the election in 2024, right? We don't really see any evidence that he's going to attempt to hold on to power long term. Like,
okay, so this is again where you're mischaracterizing what my argument is. I'm not claiming Donald Trump is the only fascist here. I put specifically MAGA is a fascist movement, not Donald Trump is a sole fascist dictator. The movement MAGA is fascist and is going to survive well after Donald Trump. They've already been making plans to scale back liberal democratic norms. Part of this we can see with the SAVE Act and the fact that it directly violates the 24th Amendment, right? Part of this we see with the way they've been engaging in election tampering in Georgia and trying to control that swing state. Like we've seen this. We've seen what the administration is doing. I don't know if you have. You may just put blinders on. But again, MAGA as a movement is fascist. And the purpose of MAGA is to put MAGA in charge indefinitely so that Peter Thiel can make America the way he wants without a president eventually.
Well, what's really interesting is I would actually phrase what Trump is doing as more like strongman authoritarian, but not fascist, right? Because my
Define
sort of
fascism for me.
definition of yeah, so this is an important part of the discussion. So my definition of fascism would generally be when individuals within the country identify the strength of themselves as coinciding with the strength of the nation. And that naturally leads to an erosion of individual liberty and individual rights. So I don't necessarily think you can say that fascism has anything to do with rejecting like democratic norms. I think
I think your definition is lacking. Your definition is basically when individuals identify as ultranationalistic. That's a part of my definition of fascism, is the ultranationalist part of the movement, right? It's identifying the strength of yourself as the strength of the nation. That's ultranationalism. But you then ignore the other key parts of what fascists do, which is again focusing on like mythic national rebirth, and then focusing on the erosion of democratic norms and worker rights, all of which happen in fascist areas. And to argue that they don't is just ahistoric, because it's happened in every single fascist regime we've ever seen. Whether the person is elected into office or not, every single time they will slowly begin to chip away at, for instance, the ability of the individuals to vote, or the ability for the individuals to vote fairly, because they know that it will keep them in power. We see this again in almost every instance. We saw it with Mussolini, we saw it with Franco, we saw it with Hitler. But you're saying, I know that these people who are the blueprint for fascism, who all operated almost the exact same way, right, did this, but I don't think this is fascism. And again, I think that's ahistoric, and I don't think a single scholar would agree with you on this, at least in terms of characterizing fascism. Umberto Eco definitely wouldn't. Lawrence Britt definitely wouldn't. I don't know what other fascist scholars we want to talk about, but they for certain, I mean, I can pull up fucking letters on fascism behind me, and I can check there, but they're going to talk about the erosion of democratic social norms, or I'm sorry, liberal democratic norms. And those erosions we're directly seeing in terms of MAGA right now. Again, the SAVE Act is a giant example of this.
But I mean, let's just list some of the examples of fascism, like, and you can tell me whether you view this as fascist or not, just to kind of whittle down on this definition, because I think it's important. So one party control of the state would be fascist, correct?
That can be fascist, yes.
Okay, so you'd agree we don't see that right now?
That would be an end goal of fascism, right?
But we don't see it right now, is what I'm saying.
I'm sorry. Do you think that Hitler wasn't a fascist until he took power? What was he before? He had all the same plans. He hadn't implemented them. Do you just think fascists have to have implemented their plans fully to be fascist?
I think but answer my question first. I did ask my question first. So would you say that you would agree we don't have a one-party state right now?
How do you get to a one-party state? Would you have to erode liberal democratic norms in order to do it?
Yeah, but I'm going to get to whether that's actually happening or not in a bit. But I just want to be clear. Like, you would agree we don't see a one-party state right now?
I would agree we don't see a one-party state right now. Okay. This is a nonsense point, though.
Another example would be...
Wait, I'm sorry. Please just answer. Before we move on, please just answer me here. Do you think a fascist nation has to reach that one-party state in order to be rightfully, like a movement, sorry. Do you think a movement or a party has to reach that in order to be fascist? Or does it just have to be a goal of theirs?
I believe there has to be I think it has to be a clearly stated goal of reaching a one-party state, which if you look at people like Hitler and Mussolini, they both explicitly, even before claiming power, explicitly laid out the idea that they're going to eliminate the other party.
Hitler did not. No, neither did Mussolini. They literally used social talking points to convince people that they wanted something completely different. No, absolutely not. I would not say Hitler's stated goal at the start of his rise to power was to convince people he wanted a one-party state. It absolutely was not.
So you don't think that I would say that that's not true, actually.
Based
Like,
on
I think
based
that,
on which of Hitler's, based on what of Hitler's would you say that that's not true?
so, from what I understand about the rise of the Nazi Party, he in Mein Kampf wrote early on about his desire to have a one-party state explicitly. Like, he didn't advertise it
Wait,
publicly to people, but he
okay.
had,
Well,
he had
there.
made,
Hold on.
he had made-
Then there's your issue. I don't care what he writes in Mein Kampf. If he's going around campaigning and ignoring this fact in campaign, and not only ignoring it but saying something different, then no, he's not pushing and campaigning on a one-party state. He's trying to trick people. Hopefully, people who've never read his work. It'd be like, I don't know, if Donald Trump went around campaigning that he didn't want to do something like, I don't know, let's call it Project 2022, right? It says, hey, I have nothing to do with this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do any of the things in here, even though if we analyze that project, it directly would lead to a one-party state government, right? Hey, I don't want to do this, but then I'm going to put like 75% of the people that wrote it in my cabinet and indirectly around me in power, and I'm going to implement within my first year like 50% of this plan. And I'm going to be backed by one of the dudes that funded the creation of this plan. Seems pretty interesting that would map on. So,
well, just to push back, because
no, John, I'm good. I don't need you to push back. This is just such a fucking stupid call. And your whole point boils down to it's not fascist if he fails. He's not fascist if he doesn't achieve it. It's so stupid. No thanks. I'm fucking good, bro. So dumb, dude. Dude, it's so stupid. I'm sorry, I just think it's so dumb, dude. Homie, he said at the start of that call that it would be fascist. And this is my biggest thing, is he realized that he got caught instantly in the agreement with the point, and then had to walk it back and tried to find any way he could walk it back. And when he realized he couldn't walk back this point on the election fraud, he had to try to move to something else. I want to go back and listen to that point of the call real quick. Are we ignoring when he said that stupid shit? Legal
operating in the movement.
Let me see if I can find it. I could be convinced. All right, let me see if I can find it.
How are you? Too. I heard
that was Frank. That was Frank. I
hung
up on Frank. I just need to know if that point is.
Yeah, there was no.
You think there was a peaceful transition of power? Hold on, I want to listen to this real quick. I want to see how John caught himself in.
Is defined, yes, it generally involves the military cooperating in the movement. Yes,
that's not it's not really entirely true. Is it fascist to attempt to use fraudulent electors to win an election? Would that be fascist?
Would it be fascist to attempt to use fraudulent electors to win an election? Is that what you asked?
Yep.
If you tried to go outside the existing legal structure, then yes. But
okay, Donald Trump tried to do that.
No, he didn't.
Bro, here's what I could tell. Here's what I can tell from going back and looking at this. He didn't know about the fraudulent elector stuff. I don't think he knew. I don't think he had any fucking idea that happened. So he was going on, he was going off of, hey, Donald Trump just fought in court and then that erupted. I don't think he knew about the election shit. So then when I show that, hey, Donald Trump tried to go outside of legal channels and do something illegal, he had to fight tooth and nail against it. Fuck, these people are so stupid. God damn. Anyway, that's our show for today. Thank you guys for being here. This was stream number 2 today, so I hope you guys enjoyed 2 streams today. 2 streams. I'll be back live tomorrow, probably around noon-ish, or give or take. Yeah, I'll probably be back on around noon-ish. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for being here. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for chilling. Thank you for fucking around and finding out. Sorry to Andrew Wilson. We don't have time to get to you today. I know you're in the calling queue, but we don't have time to get to you. So you'll have to call back another day to try to get in. Thank you guys. I hope you guys have a good one. I will see everybody tomorrow. TTFM, baby. Goodbye.